Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 301. We got over the hump of 300 last week with a big, gigantic blowout. In fact, I think it was the longest episode of GameFace we have ever done, and that's saying something. But we are back. It is Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, which means we're ready to stream the next episode of GameFace live on Twitch. Alongside me to do that is Matthew. Kyle, what's up, Matt?
Oh, nothing.
Nothing. Holy moly.
Just nothing.
Nothing. Wow. This is, I was talking to Matt before we went live, and I believe this is the worst year I can remember for game releases ever.
This is the first time I can remember the summer drought starting in April, that's for sure.
It is definitely the first time this has ever happened since we launched GameFace.
Yeah. I am desperate for July 29th at this point for Xenoblade.
Yeah.
Like, it's the only thing.
The last Xenoblade came and we were like, okay, that's cool. That's an extra game to talk about. Now it's like this grail that we're like.
Yeah, it's like the Xenoblade special.
Oh, man.
All of August will be Xenoblade.
Yeah, exactly. The whole month. It's Xenoblade month.
I'm just going to play it live.
It is so dry. What do you think is the biggest reason for this, Matt? Is it COVID? Is it really just COVID,
some of it
ultimately?
Yeah, some of it is. Some of it, I think, is like growing pains for the new stuff. And I think largely it's just the disruption of COVID, and it's still causing problems. You know, it's happening everywhere. You get, if it's not workforce problems, it's shipping problems or manufacturing problems. So, it's, it could be worse. Could be baby formula. We'd have to ship it, pay like taxpayer dollars to get it over here. If you can even get it to happen. Right. But so it's, I think a lot of it is that. And it's just, like, but it's just, I've never seen anything like this. It's just stuff's constantly slipping out. Feels like every week there's something else. Even like insignificant things getting delayed that people don't pay attention to. Yeah. That might be relevant for us in like 3 weeks. But Gollum's coming out on September 1st. Yeah. The crazy part is the window here that the big publishers are missing. Yeah. If you had a big game to release in this window right now, it would do way better than it normally would have done. Yeah. Well, I'm sure they wish they had one. Yeah. Like, it's not like I think they're doing it intentionally. Oh, no, like Forspoken wishes it could have come out. I mean, now the rumor is Forspoken might slip to next year. Oh, really? Yeah. Another one of my games on my fantasy team. It's really... Remember when that was supposed to come out in February? Yeah. Like Forspoken would have cleaned up if it came out this week. And it ended up being decent. Yeah, it was good. This would be a prime place to put out Stray or Hellblade. Yeah. Yeah, like you're the field's wide open. There's like you do whatever the hell you want. It's 3 months. It's really crazy. Even like a really good retro collection of something. I mean, Capcom and Sega might get more traction with the fighting game and Sonic collections than we think next month. Like, there's nothing else to. I'm kind of like, oh yeah, maybe I will play Sonic 3 again. Like, who knows? Like, I mean, that's where I'm getting. That's where I'm at. Like, it's literally never been this bad. In the 300 episodes that we have done of GameFace. It's never been this bad for this prolonged a period of time. Yeah, I've never had a period where I've been like, I guess to be like Friday, and I'm like, I should probably look at what I should play, the new stuff to
what
play
can I dig up? What
show.
Can I find?
And I'm like, there's nothing. There's nothing.
Oddly enough, we do have two games.
Yeah, there was something this week.
Roller Champions comes out tomorrow. Yeah, I saw that. Ubisoft did not send me early code for that. There's only one review up right now on the entire internet for it. So they know. Pretty much. They know it's not going to review well, but we will talk about that in next week's show. But it might sell well because there's nothing else. It's free to play. Evil Dead sold 500,000. I know. Because, again, there's nothing. Yeah. And now that other vampire thing, the V Rising or whatever, that MMO. Yeah. Like, it's turned into like the next Valheim. Yeah. Yeah. Because, again, there's nothing else to play. It's so bad. Johnny Hurricane brings up that Sniper Elite is out soon. Yes, that's true. Yeah. I could stand to shoot Hitler in the balls right about now. That is true. That would feel really good, actually. Yeah, I'm kind of on board for that one. Yeah. Maybe we'll do a Sniper Elite for sure. I have been going back and playing a backlog. I have never done that since I launched Sifted. I have never that's my trick. What are you doing? Exactly. I have never had a window of time where there weren't games to play where I could go back and play old games. I finished Horizon Forbidden West. And now I'm playing Dying Light 2. This is insane. This is unheard of.
You know what I went back and played more of? I went back and played Lego Star Wars again because they patched that and fixed the quest I was stuck on. And I'm up to like 800 Kyber bricks now out of 1,200. And I played some Titan Quest that I haven't done in forever.
Wow.
I really like that game. But it's like there's no reason to do that now.
Well, there is a reason.
Well, now because there's nothing else to do.
Because there's nothing else to play. Yeah, so it's rough out there.
I keep thinking about playing Witcher 3 again, but then I'm like, I'll just wait for the next gen thing, which I guess is Q4 now, if we're lucky.
Yeah, they just announced that today, I think, the final date for that, or yesterday. I feel bad for Kinda Funny, who has to do a podcast every day.
Yeah, well. I mean, there was a time when there really was that much happening.
Yeah.
Now I guess you could just play retro games forever.
Yeah, I also picked a great time, by the way, to put Good Morning Gaming on hiatus.
Yeah.
I had pretty much wrung the towel dry at the point when we put that show on hiatus.
Might need to become Good Week Gaming if you bring it
back. Exactly. But anyway, here we are. We are doing our best to bring great shows to you guys. And honestly, I think we do have a great show today. I think it's going to be full of great topics, not necessarily great games per se. A couple things before we get going. Just now, in fact, 7 minutes ago, our brand new show, New Dimension, 2D to 3D, launched on YouTube for everyone. Now, I talked about this on last week's episode because I wanted to get you guys on board to go and like it and leave comments, but I ended up readjusting my strategy towards that show because I was like, you know what? I'd rather launch it right during GameFace so I can send all you guys right now to youtube.com/siftedgames to go like that video and leave a comment on that video. And that is what I'm asking you to do right now. Go to youtube.com/siftedgames. It is the newest published video. It should be at the top of the video list. Give that a like, please. And if you have 10 seconds before you come back to GameFace, please write a quick comment, even if it's just like, there's no other show like this that I've seen, because there isn't. I've searched YouTube high and low. I have not seen another feature like New Dimension. It is a series that chronicles the industry's biggest franchises as they transition from 2D to 3D, and how the elements of the 2D versions of the games had to be changed or altered to work in 3D, things that wouldn't work at all. It's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited for it. The first episode just went up for everybody who subscribes at our YouTube channel. If you could please go there right now and like the video and leave a very quick comment, that would be awesome. And if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do that as well. And ring that notification bell. I don't even know what the hell that does at this point.
Smash that like button. Ring that bell.
All that stuff.
I can't even. I'm just thinking about all the games that would just turn into like a tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mortal Kombat.
A lot of them have not gone well.
No.
But
Sonic.
There's a well that is very deep.
Oh,
so the series can go on forever. And we're only doing the other reason I waited to launch the show live on GameFace today is because the second episode is already deep into production, and I didn't want there to be a huge gap on our YouTube channel from when the first episode airs and the second episode goes live, because I want there to be some momentum. So it won't be a full month until the second episode appears on YouTube, and the second episode, as I said, is in full production, will be appearing for our patrons and subscribers very soon. So just try to keep the momentum going with that show, and so I decided to stagger things and reschedule, and I think that's probably for the best what I've done.
Yeah. Retrospect, like historical stuff like that is popular right now. I didn't watch, but it was on while I was doing other things, a 5-hour documentary video about every Lord of the Rings video game ever made.
Wow.
And like there's points in that video where that man is hurting.
Yeah.
Like
it's a lot of work to do stuff like that. It is.
Well, also they're bad games. Like there's so many bad games.
Right.
And at the very beginning, he's like, I'm not covering the mobile shit, and I'm not playing the MMO. Everything else we're gonna do. Here we go.
But anyway, features are they're a lot of work, but they're evergreen. So. GameFace, we do an episode of GameFace. 3 weeks later, it's hard to convince someone to watch that episode of GameFace.
But everybody can always watch something about how Bubsy 3D sucked.
That's true. But anyway, this is a big shift of focus for us. We've never really done a series like this at Sifted because it is such a huge time commitment. I had to convince Vincent to do it. I've been trying to get him to do a show like this for years. But he finally was like, okay, I'm willing to do it now. When we saw Game Pass or Fail go away. So anyway, again, head to youtube.com/siftedgames and give the episode a like and a comment if you can. It will make a big difference for the show. I really feel like this might be something that could finally hit big for Sifted, so I'd appreciate all your help. And this is GameFace. We are supported 100% by our generous patrons at patreon.com/sifted. If you're listening to this show on any of the podcast services or you're watching it 4 days delayed on YouTube, we'd appreciate it if you could head to patreon.com/sifted and check it out and see if you can help us out in some way with a pledge. We'd really appreciate it. That's really how the site and all our content are going to survive and thrive, is by getting those Patreon pledges. And if you don't have any money and can't pledge, we also can help us for free if you're an Amazon Prime member, using Twitch Prime, and descriptions and instructions on how to do that are down below in the description on YouTube. And with that, I think we're ready to kick off the dang show. You guys should be back by now from heading over to YouTube and liking all the stuff we'd asked you to go like. We're going to kick things off with... Oh, you're right, Matt. In fact, we have something very important to do first. We have a sponsor for the next month, and here is their ad. A once-in-a-lifetime property is now available in northwest Montana, featuring 92 acres of gorgeous wilderness, approximately 1 mile along the Blue Ribbon, trout-rated Kootenai River, and an eye-popping view of the Cabernet Mountain Wilderness area. This is truly an outdoorsman's paradise. You can use the restored and remodeled barn with living quarters as a year-round home, vacation cabin, fishing retreat, horse ranch, or cattle ranch. Contact Doug DeShazer today for additional pictures, information, and an opportunity to view this very special piece of Montana. And with interest rates starting to rise, now is the time to pull the trigger on a home or property. Even if you're not able to relocate to Montana, worry not, Sifters. Doug DeShazer has facilitated home and land sales in California, Texas, Oregon, Washington, and many other states. He can find you the perfect real estate agent for the job, no matter where you live in the U.S. Feel free to contact Doug with any questions regarding real estate at deshazermt@gmail.com or give him a call at 406-291-1643. That's 406-291-1643. Big thanks to DeShazer Ryan Realty, really showing up in our time of need. We needed a sponsor now more than ever. And I really appreciate them showing up and offering to sponsor GameFace for the next month or so. It makes a big difference for us. And now...
I'm going to buy that place just to turn it into a bar so someone can have a bar fight and swing from that chandelier.
Yeah.
The wagon wheel chandelier demands a cowboy hanging from it.
It definitely does. So anyway, thanks again to DeShazer Ryan Realty for sponsoring GameFace. And now we're ready for the real thing. We're ready for the show. We're going to talk first about yet another, and this is something that if you had told me this 2 years ago, Matt, I never would have dreamed that this would even be a possibility.
But I brought this up several times.
We've mentioned it a couple times. In fact, we just talked about EA last episode. Yep. And right on cue, like the next day, we start to hear rumors.
The cat came back.
Yeah, that EA is up on the block
they'd like to be.
Or they'd like to be.
And have been wanting to be since before even the Activision deal happened.
Yep. For either a sale or a merger with another company. Mergers seem a little more complicated, and also,
why would you want to give EA any control of your like why would that be? There's no possible way you'd want EA to be an equal in terms of this merger thing.
Yeah,
like they're not bringing enough to the table to be that,
which is just crazy. It's insane what's happened to EA.
I mean, what they're bringing to the table is their back catalog. Yeah. Frankly, because if this happens, you're talking about a complete unless the license agreements are very strange, every licensee gets to basically reevaluate the deal. So the NFL would have to kind of decide if they want to keep doing it. This could be the only way we ever get competition among NFL video games again.
Yeah, that's true. Frankly. Or any sports game for that matter.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already probably going to see it with FIFA.
Yeah, well, FIFA already decided to make their own games. So.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Take-Two swoops in and scoops up that FIFA IP, that license.
Well, FIFA isn't offering it.
Oh, really?
FIFA's making their own video games now.
Oh, Lord.
They're going to open do their own stuff.
A mistake.
Yes. But
MLB tried to do that.
I mean, that's what they said when that news was reported, that FIFA's going to do their own thing.
Oh, I missed that somehow. Yeah. What a terrible decision that is.
Now, who knows if they'll get to the point where they actually open a dev studio or something. At some point, someone may be like, oh, this is way harder than we thought.
Yeah.
And they'll just go to Take-Two. But,
No, from what I understood, like the original, the idea is to have FIFA have a basically game dev wing.
Yeah. Another thing that is, I believe is going to maybe a deal breaker for a lot of people who may be interested in merging with EA is that EA is pushing for its CEO, Andrew Wilson, to have control over the merged companies. And it's like, wait a minute.
It's nice to have dreams, I
guess. Like, no.
Like the only instance of that I can recall in recent memory is Lucasfilm. Like Lucasfilm, part of the deal when Disney bought Lucasfilm was that Lucasfilm basically retains creative control over all their stuff. Which also means that if you're blaming Disney for things you don't like in Star Wars, you're wrong, because it's all the people running Lucasfilm. Yeah. But that was one of the reasons they got Lucasfilm so cheap, because $4 billion was actually a ridiculously low price for Star Wars. And like that was part of the thing, was like it basically remains an independent creative entity. But they have Star Wars and Indiana Jones. EA has
well, to your point earlier, talking about its back catalog, the problem for EA is a lot of its back catalog is irrelevant because they're sports games.
No, EA has tons and tons. Right, but do.
But they're so old, Matt.
It doesn't matter. You can take a bunch of those things and turn them into something.
You can remake them and
I'm not saying re-release them. I'm saying, like, if you think there's no market for a Wing Commander game right now, you're out of your mind. Like,
there is one. I don't think it's gigantic.
It's bigger than you think it is.
Yeah,
it's bigger. It's certainly bigger than EA thinks it is. And there's tons of stuff in there. Like a high quality Wasteland game, Command and Conquer, the Strike games. It goes on and on and on. Like they have so much stuff buried. Starflight, like you turn Starflight into, like, they could have beaten Bethesda to the punch if they just turned Starflight into a Mass Effect.
People like us, EA's catalog is more attractive. People who played a lot of PC games, quote unquote, back in the day. People like us, I think we value EA's catalog a lot more than the average player.
Well, only in the sense that EA's done nothing with it. Yeah. Like if you take all that stuff and turn it into something palatable by modern standards, they could all be huge. Like you're talking about, anything can be a hit.
I mean, look, if the game is good,
10 years ago, no one knew what the hell Vibranium was, but now all that stuff is huge.
I mean, look, a good game is a good game. It's going to sell if they market it right and they get the word out there. I'm talking about, like, how much intrinsic value is there in that back catalog of EA, and I just don't think that there's all that much. And because it's made in terms of many sports games, all these sports franchises are worthless. Like, they have no value.
In terms of like, setting a purchase price, yes. But in terms of possible, like, potential value, it's almost unlimited. EA has just done nothing with it.
Yeah.
And that's even leaving
Which is probably a big reason why it's looking to sell.
Where's the fucking Dead Space game? The Callisto Protocol's Calypso Protocol?
Callisto Protocol.
Yeah. Like, that just went up on, this is going to be a Game Informer reveal, and there's a cover story. So, like, and everyone's freaking out because it looks like Dead Space. Everybody just wants Dead Space back. Like, you have Dead Space.
Well, they did
the only reason Dead Space 3 failed is because the executives made it be something it wasn't supposed to be.
Well, they're working on the remake right now, and that's also been delayed out of the year. Mm-hmm. Another game that, like, under the radar was delayed out of 2022 into 2023. And who knows? We do want to give credit to the person who broke this story, because that's what we do here on GameFace. Dylan Byers at Puck was the reporter who broke a lot of this stuff. And just to give you guys the nuts and bolts, because Matt and I, we have a tendency to kind of fly off on tangents when we first start discussing something. Recently, EA pursued a merger. This is according to, again, Dylan Byers. Pursued a merger with NBC Universal and also held potential acquisition talks with Disney, Apple, and Amazon, among other companies. EA's been persistent in pursuing a sale and has only grown more emboldened in the wake of the Microsoft Activision deal. Others say that EA is primarily interested in a merger arrangement that would allow Wilson to remain as CEO of the combined company. Wilson reportedly approached Disney just in March to change their relationship in some significant way. Apparently, the deal with NBC Universal was the one that got the furthest along. Again, according to Byers, Comcast CEO Brian Roberts was looking to spin off the entertainment conglomerate into a separate entity with EA, with one version of the deal leaving current EA CEO Andrew Wilson in charge of the new mega business. Negotiations eventually fell apart over the price, though. Here's the official statement from EA that I believe Kotaku got. We are proud to be operating from a position of strength and growth. With a portfolio of amazing games built around powerful IP made by incredibly talented teams and a network of more than 500 million players, we see a very bright future ahead. Matt, end quote.
Bright futures don't usually have people going around trying to sell themselves.
Exactly.
So.
I mean, I would argue that of everything he just listed there, the thing that has the most value is the 500 million people.
Yeah.
On their list. Yeah. Like they have 500 million email addresses, basically, is what it comes down to. That is probably the most value of everything that they just listed there.
Bold to go to Disney and be like, hey, look at how we performed for you on Star Wars. Don't you want to own us?
Yeah, that's a tough sell.
No. And shouldn't we stay in control of it? No.
Yeah. Well, they also had Battlefield, which they've just destroyed.
Yeah.
The timing couldn't be worse. Right now, here's the thing, Matt. Right now, the value of EA is at rock bottom. Yeah. It could not be lower. It's big of... What would have been its biggest IP, Battlefield, is completely in the toilet. Mm-hmm. They lost the Star Wars license. It doesn't have an exclusive after next year, I think it is. Yeah. What does it have?
Respawn.
I mean, really, Respawn, that's what we mentioned last week. Respawn's pulling the cart for EA, and it just acquired Respawn 6-7 years ago?
Less than that.
Less than that, maybe. And it came in.
Yeah, because they started Fallen Order before they were purchased.
Yeah.
Which is one reason they didn't have to use Frostbite.
Right, yeah. It's like the lower third says, the mighty have fallen. Mm-hmm. Again, even 3 years ago, you did ask me hey, would EA be up or open to an acquisition or merger in 2022? I'd have laughed you out of the room. It's crazy.
As Motoko, as the Major said in Ghost in the Shell, over-specialize and you breed in weakness.
Yeah.
They've got 3 games at this point.
Franchises, yeah.
They've got Madden, and they don't even have FIFA anymore. They have Battlefield, and they're waiting to see if BioWare can get another hit. They don't even have control over the remake of KOTOR.
Right. Yeah.
It's amazing how much that has spun out of as they have SWTOR that's still going. And they have Respawn's keeping the lights on with Apex Legends.
I mean, it's really just pulling the whole cart, Apex Legends, because that game just prints money basically.
Dragon Age 4 is
who knows
well over a year out.
Yeah,
at best.
I mean, look,
people are talking about Mass Effect 4 like it's something we need to worry about right now. I
mean, they've murdered Mass Effect as well with Andromeda. I mean, that IP doesn't have the cachet that it had.
No, the excitement over a new Mass Effect is imagine if Andromeda had never happened or if it would have been called something else.
Right. Now we were waiting for a new Mass Effect. People would be losing their minds.
Yeah. But instead it's
instead there's trepidation.
Well, same with Dragon Age. All the Dragon Age fans. I know some real hardcore Dragon Age fans, and they're all like, hope it's good. There's just no confidence left.
Yeah. I have hardly any confidence in EA. Hardly none. And it's the deal with the NBC Universal fell apart. Over price, what was going on there. EA was asking for too much money.
Yeah.
NBC's are you crazy? This isn't $19.99 anymore. When you were a real publisher that published a lot of games. I mean, we were talking last week about how there just aren't anywhere near as many games being released anymore. And EA is the poster child for that. If you look at its output from the mid-90s to now, holy crap. Mm-hmm. Activision, too, to be fair.
Oh, yeah. Activision's even worse. Down to basically one game. They didn't put that Crash Bandicoot stuff out.
Yeah.
You had Medal of Honor. You had Need for Speed. Sounds like Need for Speed's dropping out of this year. It's another...
Yep, that also pushed out of this year.
And they merge that's the thing is they want they're doing the thing the movie industry's doing. There was a great video, I can't remember who the guy was talking about it, but he's basically saying look, you by focusing only on the mega hits, by focusing only on the big the things that make $1 billion, the movie industry has made themselves non-essential entertainment. Mm-hmm. Basically, because you want you want the comedies and the rom-coms and the indie movies and the epics and the sweeping sort of dramas that don't make $1 billion, that even lose money at times, because those appeal to different people than the big tentpoles. So, but by only focusing on the tentpoles, only focusing on the thing, and sure, from a business sense, it kind of makes sense to look at that. But what you're doing when you do that is you are over-specializing. You're targeting a specific audience. And you're making the movies a specific thing for a specific person, whereas the movies used to be everyone. Used to be for everyone. Like it used to be that if you could always go to the theater and find something you were interested in, and that's not true anymore. And he's like saying these studios need to start putting out even stuff at a loss, like indie stuff at a loss, but to put it out there so everybody has a reason to go to the theater again. And EA kind of did the same thing. It's like there's no reason to even look at EA's presentations if you don't care about those three things. You don't care about football or Battlefield.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Like,
maybe Need for Speed sprinkled in here every once in a while, and those are always disappointing too.
But EA used to have just like this spread of every like imaginable genre. They would make all the, even if you were like sick of Madden and FIFA and Battlefield and Medal of Honor and all that stuff, but it's like, oh, we're just going to put out Mirror's Edge and Dead Space out of nowhere, and it's just like, oh,
could you imagine modern
they
EA?
Would experiment. They do weird shit. Like it's
Dante's Inferno.
Dante's Inferno.
Could you imagine EA today publishing a game like Dante's Inferno?
No.
And granted, the game wasn't great.
No, but it wasn't
terrible either.
It was different. It was and it was chasing a trend. It was still chasing the God of War trend, but like it was. I mean,
it showed EA trying.
Yeah, and like it
feels like it doesn't try,
and it was edgy and stupid, but it was like also like it was amazing to me on some level to think that the stuffed shirts at EA corporate allowed a game where you walked around on the skulls of dead babies to exist. Yeah. And like now you're like you can't like you feel like they're micromanaging what's allowed to be in the playbooks in Madden now. You're like, why are you listening to any of these people?
It's bizarre. It's not just EA. A lot of publishers have done this, but EA to me is the worst example of it, or maybe the most obvious example of it. Just the lack of variety, the lack of quantity at all. And look,
I mean, to me, that's Activision. But like,
you think Activision's worse than EA?
Well, for a while, Activision's literal only game was Call of Duty. There are a couple of years there where I think that's the only thing they put out.
That may be true, actually.
Unless you're talking about like ongoing Blizzard stuff.
Yeah, there's like Sekiro, and then they do Crash stuff here and there.
They do the Crash trilogy, but like beyond that, I can't think. Before,
you're right, actually.
Before that, you're basically going back to the Transformers games before High Moon got folded into the sweatshop for Call of Duty maps. And
then you had, obviously you had the Tony Hawk games for a long time that were coming out every year, and they're gone now.
I mean, that's how stagnant Activision got. Was like a new Tony Hawk game was like a breath of fresh air from them. I remember when we couldn't even bear to think about playing another Tony Hawk game.
Yeah, and there was Guitar Hero. I mean, it used to have a bunch of franchises that came out every year.
Yeah.
And I don't think that was the right tactic either, but they went from one extreme to the other. They have not found the middle ground, the happy medium. And EA hasn't done it either. And they're two of the biggest US publishers.
Yeah, when you think about how many people work for EA and how little output there is.
Because Matt,
really
you
astounding.
And I, if you've worked in the industry, you have been to countless EA campuses, development studios. They're everywhere, and they're gigantic.
Yep.
They have a huge headquarters in San Francisco. They have a huge headquarters in LA, just 300 miles away. And then they have a huge headquarters in Florida where all the Madden stuff is done. And then they have a huge headquarters in Europe where a lot of the FIFA stuff is done. And this is their output. It's really crazy that they can afford to pay all those people year-round, year after year, without releasing anything.
Yeah, like they lean pretty hard on the EA Partners thing for kind of like little things, like
Unraveled and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
but like
none of that stuff sells very well.
No.
So they're, at least EA in some cases, still experimenting. The Sims is another franchise that that pulls the cart for EA in a lot of ways.
Well, except The Sims is more or less non-existent. I mean, Maxis got dismantled like brick by brick. It was really disturbing, really.
But it still does pretty well. The Sims, it still generates a good bit of revenue.
It still generates a lot of like community action. It hasn't been a growth franchise in more than a decade.
I mean, yeah, we've been waiting almost a decade for the next Sims game. I mean, they've been milking the Sims with expansion packs
because they don't know what else to do. Like they never reinvent The Sims. The Sims is like The Sims 4 was sort of the straw that broke a lot, because like going from 2 to 3 was like, okay, 3 is 3D.
Yeah.
So you're kind of big upgrades. You got to rebuy everything. And they did the same thing with Sims 4. It's like, okay, Sims 4 is just the vanilla Sims again, and now you got to rebuy all the expansion packs all over again just to get the content up to parity with what you already had on Sims 3. And a lot of people just didn't move on from Sims 3 because there was no reason.
Yeah.
And the modding community was so advanced that they were able to make Sims 3 work better than the Sims 4 for the most part anyway. The Sims is a really good example of their fear of reinventing the wheel. The other thing I would say is, like, as much as a misfire as it was, there was more you could do with Spore.
Oh yeah,
like you could reiterate Spore. Like Spore was ripe for the No Man's Sky treatment.
Matt, I found actually when I was searching through clips for GameFace 300 last week, I found a clip where you talked about your niece, who was at that time was like 11 or whatever, had found Spore and was playing Spore, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
So you're right. I mean, that franchise has some legs, but ultimately, I mean, look, if I was a consultant and some company was coming to me and saying, Shane, like, who should we acquire? We're looking to acquire a big publisher, a big developer. EA would be at the bottom of my list. I do not see EA as having
EA would
exceptional long-term prospects.
EA would be up there for me as if I asked them, like, are you willing to take existing but long dormant IP and turn it into something worthwhile? Because if you want to take Desert Strike or Burnout or Dead Space or any of these things that they used to have back in the day, Budokai, like there's that back catalog goes deep and goes hard, and like you could make some real stuff, but it would be 3-4 years from now before you put it out, you know, like
I mean, that sounds
you'd
like
be
something...
starting from scratch after spending all this money, and that's kind of what you need to decide. Because I don't think if you're looking at an EA acquisition just based on what's kind of in the pipeline and already there, I don't think there's any real value for you.
Well, that is what Embracer and THQ Nordic typically does, is they find companies that have a lot of long dead IP, but Embracer just lost $500 million in its last financial year. And it said, you know what? We're going to slow our roll a little bit.
Probably why. I mean, you'd need to do something like what THQ Nordic did with Darksiders.
Right.
You know, like it was like everyone thought they were crazy, but it turned out okay.
It worked okay, really.
Yeah. Still waiting. It's coming up on 10 years since they had that cliffhanger on Darksiders 1. Maybe one day we could finish that frickin' story, but like...
I wouldn't hold my breath.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So weird, but that kind of thing, you know, like Titan Quest. You know, they put out 2 more expansions for Titan Quest since they acquired them. That's nuts.
Yeah,
but it did real well.
That's awesome though.
On their scale, like that's the thing is like the price you'd have to pay for EA would have to be proportional to what you're going to be able to expect from them, and I don't think EA understands that.
Yeah,
like that's probably why their asking price is kind of the deal breaker all the time here.
Yeah,
is like. There is a value to this. There is a value to sort of the not the EA name, but the EA properties and their catalog. I could come up with 10 pitches for like great games based on things that EA hasn't touched since the 16-bit era, like by next Friday. But that's an investment beyond what you're really usually looking at with sort of an acquisition, certainly a merger. Like a merger is like implying that like what we're doing right now is cool. We just need to keep doing it under a different umbrella. And I don't know a single person who has a single entity that has the money to buy EA that would think that about EA.
Yeah, it would be a gutting. If somebody actually purchased EA, they would gut that place.
Yeah, you
wouldn't even recognize it like 18 months later.
Yeah,
if they're smart anyway, because it's headed in the wrong direction.
I mean, certainly the executive wing.
Yeah.
Like, I think most of the developers are entirely capable and talented enough to do what you want them to do and need them to do here.
I wonder, though, Matt. I mean, do you think DICE is a good developer at this point?
I think they could be.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think you need to go to DICE as an entity and sort of sit down with them and be like, what do you guys want? You got to do a Guerrilla Games thing. You're like, okay, we've had you doing this for a long time. We had you making Killzone for a long time. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Like, what do you got? Is there a game that like the people in the hallways of DICE talk about making one day if they're no longer chained to the Battlefield franchise? Like, what would that be?
See it.
Let's see what that would be. Like, let's bring some passion back to these people.
I mean, what we're seeing right now is what EA has become.
Yeah. Choose your badge.
Yeah. I mean, this is it, though. I mean, Ultimate Team.
Yeah.
Between Apex Legends and Ultimate Team on Madden and FIFA, that is what pays all EA's bills.
Basically the Magic the Gathering model for video games.
How odd is that? Never would have dreamed that EA...
And how weird is it that no one really thinks about it?
Yeah.
You know, like how often, as someone who doesn't play sports games... I have to remember every time I see footage of this or you bring it up, it's like, oh yeah, there's a giant microtransaction scam system that basically buoys FIFA and Madden.
Yeah,
like that's the and MLB has it, the show has it, like Certainly NBA 2K has it.
Yeah.
Like it's just like the whole sports video game world is sort of a giant racket for this.
It's a racket. Yeah, it really is. Preying on people who should know better, in all honesty. Mm-hmm. So what do you think is going to happen here, Matt? I don't think they're going to be acquired or merged. I think they're just going to go on.
I don't think anyone's going to be dumb enough to buy them I think they're going, because also if you are interested in their back catalog or sort of acquiring anything there, you know that all you got to do is wait.
Yeah. The price is going to keep going down. Yeah.
You wait for them to be more desperate. There's no hurry. Why would you? What is the rush to buy EA?
Yeah. It's not like there's some hot project that's like on the verge of coming out.
All due respect to the fans of it, but no one's looking at Dragon Age 4 and being like, I got to get in on that.
Yeah.
Like no one knows anything
It's all
yet.
wait and see.
Yeah.
Yeah. The new Dead Space remake, wait and see.
Yeah.
Is it going to be good? Who knows? Like
the only thing I am unadulteratedly looking forward to from EA is Fallen Order 2.
Yeah, me too. Anything from Respawn.
Yeah. Anything Respawn does, you got my attention.
Yeah. And that's
about it.
That's about it. Yeah. Again, oh, how the mighty have fallen. Just to even talk about EA in this way, or Activision for that matter, both of them. Like,
well, I mean, at least there are things I'm looking forward to from EA at all, which is more than I can say about Activision.
That's true. Yeah, you're not a Call of Duty guy, so it's even worse.
And even if I was, not this year.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there is a Call of Duty coming this year.
Next year.
Next year is the year they're taking off. It looks like we may get Modern Warfare 2, which we got an announcement about that today, actually. The first,
God, I might actually play Call of Duty this year. There's nothing else to do.
You might play it. We may get that and the new Warzone this same year, and then have nothing next year.
Yeah.
They should have.
I'm sure there'll be Warzone.
Well, they'll have Warzone seasons or whatever for sure, but like they probably should have held the new Warzone until next year. So that they have something new to release.
They seem to be treating those as two very separate IPs.
They do, yeah. Which is why I feel like they should have waited and had something Call of Duty related to
I think they think it's more important to keep the Warzone momentum going.
It's possible. Because that also is turning into a cash cow for Activision.
Because releasing Call of Duty is not going to help or impact Warzone, really.
Yeah.
So you might as well just keep that rolling.
It just feels like it's going to be out of sight, out of mind for a long time.
I think at this point they've just settled into what their playable playing community, and it's time to milk them.
Yeah, it's sad, but I don't expect any big news. I don't think like in 2 weeks we're going to get this announcement that like EA was purchased by PlayStation or anything like that. Like, this is going to drag on. But look, they've staked the claim. They're out there now saying, "Look, we're listening." So I would expect the chatter to pick up at the very least now that they've gone so public about it. Although I'm guessing every major publisher, every major media company knew that EA was out shopping itself already. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's going to change much either. So it's changing landscape.
Odds are this is this was leaked by EA themselves.
Yeah.
Be like, who wants a piece of us kind of things, and it's like, that's cool.
Well, it's funny that like
wait until you're a little more desperate. Thank you.
Well, right. It's funny that the story leaked out and an acquisition hasn't happened.
No, nobody wants that.
It's sad.
I mean, if that statement you read, like the fact that they seem to, even if it's just rhetoric, that they seem to think they're negotiating from a position of power is like, well, then why are you selling yourself?
Yeah.
Like it's just delusional.
It is delusional.
So
yeah,
it might just be PR speak, but it still comes off as ridiculous. So I'm sure that anyone with interest or money to acquire this company basically be like, we wait a couple years. They'll let them have a few more bombs. Let Dragon Age 4 come out. Let them have to make that choice about BioWare.
Yeah,
see what that does to their value.
That's true. Yeah, you would like to be able to wait until like the new Mass Effect came out. But that's too long.
No, that's an eternity.
That's way too long from now. Yep. So there you go. That's the latest on EA. There's obviously all this news we just shared with you, but I don't expect a whole lot to be happening here in the near future around it.
No, like the thing that EA could do best because they're not going to get acquired is they should sell off parts of their IP catalog. They should just sell off parts of their vault.
Yeah,
like.
They're not going to do anything with it.
No, like you haven't touched Starflight in 30 years.
Yeah.
You haven't made anything out of any of just let someone who's interested make Wing Commander.
Right.
Let someone who's interested, they did that
just take a little cut up from like each game sale or whatever.
Yeah, like just throw something out there.
So it's at least relevant because right now 95% of his catalog is irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's take a look at chat and see what people are saying about this. We have some questions. Mark Simpson, UK. Given the Ukrainian conflict dominating the news and the uses of tech in that theater, do you think realistic military games will see a resurgence? The games industry will look to make a buck or two out of anything. That part is true.
I think that's too hot a topic.
I think people don't want to touch it.
No. Also, by the time you got anything made off of that, it would be 2024 at the earliest. And who knows what people are going to feel about that by then.
I just feel like we're getting enough military shooters already. Like, yeah, I don't think they're like not. I think they're saturated just the perfect amount already.
Theoretically, I guess there is room for like a game once the conflict, the Ukrainian conflict, is more settled. Sort of about like kind of the you could probably do a campaign where like the heroic Ukrainians throw off the Russians and that kind of thing. But like that's going to take time for that to be settled and not turn out to have tons of atrocities, which it already does. Yeah. Like I don't see how you portray that and have fun with it. Like it was hard enough. The Middle Eastern conflict stuff that Call of Duty used to do in the Modern Warfare stuff could work more or less because you could sort of Tom Clancy it and no one really cared. Like that's the thing is like no one really cared about what was happening there or the people it was happening to. Mm-hmm. Like it's a horrible thing to say, but it's true. Like no one, the human cost on the ground of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and all that was not really something that Westerners thought about too much. Yeah. And in this case, what's happening to people on the ground in Ukraine is sort of the focus of a lot of the coverage. So I don't think you can. It's like it would be like making a whole game out of no Russian. Mm-hmm. Like it's just like I don't see how you win.
You have to dance around so much to that.
Like you're literally
too soon.
Yeah, you're literally selling a game about the deaths of people's relatives at
that are alive.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like it's not like making a World War II game or like making you're making a game in Modern Warfare. You were doing that, but like you weren't really selling it in those areas of the world. So you kind of had a plausible deniability of like, well, some Kurdish village whose people were killed by U.S. bombings or stray missiles or Saddam's like purges or whatever. Like they're never going to see this. It's like
what do you think is going to happen?
Whereas this is like Ukraine's definitely going to see that somebody made a game out of them losing their homes. It's not a thing that anyone's going to want to touch.
Well, too, it's like no Russian is in Modern Warfare 2. Mm-hmm. That's coming out here in the next few months.
Yeah.
How you think they're going to cut it out of the game?
No.
How do you think they'll just leave it the way it was?
It'll just be the same thing where you can skip it if you want.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think that the war in Ukraine will have a lot of effect on games. If anything, I kind of agree with Matt. I think it may cause developers to dial it back.
Yeah. I think you're going to see more historical stuff. And I think you're getting to the point where like someone's going to figure out how to do Vietnam.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how you do Vietnam, but I think you do you can figure a way to do it where it's like but like then there's a real racial component to like sort of the sides on that, so I don't know how you balance that. Like it really is getting to the point where maybe you just got to do like future stuff
that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, or just fight Russians.
Yeah,
I mean that's sort of safe.
Yeah, the whole world will enjoy that. Yeah,
I think you need to get to a point where get back to our safe enemies, which are zombies, aliens, and Nazis.
Yeah.
Although I guess the Nazis are going to be upset about that at this point, huh?
A group of people I didn't think existed anymore, and was I wrong?
Certainly not in those numbers.
Yep. Let's see if anyone else has any comments. Retro Current Gamer, do you think EA will merge with Ubi or Take-Two might buy them?
No, Ubi isn't in a position to do that.
Well, Take-Two, it's trying to get into sports games, and so there's a little bit of synergy there, but
I think
I think the price is just going to be too high.
Yeah, I mean, well, also because you don't get the sports games if you do that,
right?
Like the NFL could take their license and walk. Still,
you get the studios that made the sports games, though.
But like, what good does that do you if it's not an NFL game?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you would own Tiburon at that point, and you'd have the studio to make a great NFL game, but at the same time,
Take-Two had the studio to make a great NFL game already.
Well, I don't know if a lot of the people are still
there. But they had one, and they gave up when they lost the license. So I don't think that's in the cards.
Yeah. I just think that they're asking too much, honestly. And I think that's the big problem. I think it's going to continue to be a big problem for them. Mark Simpson says, I was thinking of a game similar to the Homefront series. Sneaky says a Spec Ops remake. I don't think we're any any developer is going to push the envelope with a game like Spec Ops right now. Mm-hmm. It's just too sensitive. Casuality says the EA market cap is 3 times bigger than Take-Two. So there's no way they can buy EA. Yeah, it should be the other way around, and EA's trying to sell itself. So what does that tell you? Things are not going good.
Mm-hmm. But also, like, EA may have a market cap of that, but I don't think they're worth that if you're buying them. Like, there's a point at which you're like, this copy of X-Men #1 is worth. Okay, we'll find someone who pay that much for it. There's a difference between perceived value and what you're actually going to
get. People are mentioning Skate 4, which that's also, I feel like, at least a year and a half, 2 years away, something like that. So there you go. That's EA. It's put itself out there. I just don't think there's going to be any takers. I just don't. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about a big deal that at the time Xbox didn't think was a big deal, but ended up becoming a big deal, I think. And that is that this week it was reported that essentially the holders of the Spider-Man license, Marvel, and here's the surprising part to me of this whole story, Matt, was disappointed in the games that Activision was making, the Spider-Man games that Activision was making, and decided to take the license away from Activision and then shop it to both Xbox and PlayStation. And Xbox passed, said it wanted to focus on its own in-house IP, which at the time, I believe it was 2014?
Yeah, that's about right.
Around 2014. This was when Microsoft was mired in the either you play Forza, Gears, or Halo, or you're playing nothing on our platforms.
Well, they weren't quite there yet. They were about to enter that world.
I mean, they were, really.
Sorta. Like, I don't think they'd recognize it as a problem yet.
I think we had. I think if you go back and watch GameFace from 2015, we were talking about it back then.
A little bit. But in 2014, I don't think they'd seen that about themselves yet.
Yeah. Well, apparently they felt that they had enough of their own IP in-house that they wanted to push and support, that they didn't want to work with Spider-Man. They went to PlayStation and said, hey, what will you guys do with this? And PlayStation bit. They gave it to Insomniac, and the rest is history. Now, the question I have, Matt, and you're a great person to answer this, is how big of a deal did this end up being? And again, I want to give credit to the person who broke this information. And this comes from Stephen Kent. Do you remember him, Matt?
No.
He wrote video game books way before Jason Schreier did. He was like kind of the video game book guy. He wrote tons of them. But this is from his latest book, which is The Ultimate History of Video Games, Volume 2. And he talked to the head of Marvel Games, and he revealed how Xbox turned down an opportunity to make licensed games shortly before Sony made a deal to make Spider-Man on PS4. Executive VP and head of Marvel Games, Jay Ong, explained how the company cut its earlier deal with Activision short in search of a better partnership because it thought Activision's games weren't good enough. Ong said that
they weren't.
You don't think they were? Or they weren't.
They were not good.
We had friends who worked on those.
Yeah, not the last couple though. Like they were gone by then.
Yeah,
for the most part. Like the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 games were just they were Activision was waiting out the license too. Like no one wanted to make those games anymore.
Okay, so. Ong said that when the deal was made to walk away, Activision asked, quote, what are you going to do with this IP after you get it back? To which Ong replied, I'm going to find a better home for it. And then according to Ong, Activision's reply was, good luck finding your unicorn. And then off he went.
And somewhere Ted Price was sharpening his horn.
And Ong, just to reiterate what I was talking about a minute ago, Microsoft's strategy, according to Ong, was to focus on its own IP, and it decided to pass on the offer. And then he said, I sat down with these two execs from PlayStation third party in August 2014 in a conference room in Burbank, and they took the deal. Mm-hmm. How big of a deal do you think this ended up being in the grand scheme of things?
For whom?
For both.
I mean, it was a big deal for Sony, obviously. I don't think it's that big a deal for Microsoft.
Why would it be a big deal for Sony, but then not a big deal for Microsoft?
Because what Microsoft would have made would have been garbage.
Why do you believe that?
Because I don't know who who would they have gotten to make it. They had no one.
Ninja Theory, maybe.
Were they?
Or back then, they didn't have Ninja Theory.
No.
Yeah. I don't know who they would have.
They didn't have anyone. They didn't have. They would just made another bad Spider-Man game. and Sony had Insomniac.
Yeah.
Like the magic potion in this equation is Insomniac. If Sony doesn't take it, you don't get these games. You get some other thing.
Sony did not own Insomniac at that point, though.
No, but they had that close relationship with them.
And in fact, at that point, wasn't Insomniac working on an Xbox exclusive?
No, they'd already made that.
That had already released by 2014?
I think it was right around then, yeah. It was either 2013 or 2014.
We mentioned this game last week and we forgot.
Sunset Overdrive.
But it had to have at least been in development.
Yeah, I guarantee you they showed them Sunset Overdrive in preparation for why they should get the Spider-Man shot,
game.
Because there's a lot of Sunset Overdrive in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Which is, because it was an Xbox exclusive, makes it even funnier. That, like, you know, I guess there probably is a timeline where my Xbox could have seen the possibility and gone to Insomniac and said, hey, Sunset Overdrive didn't sell too well, but do you want to take a shot at this? Mm-hmm. And we kind of got the same thing. I don't know. But frankly, I think the version of things as they turned out were pretty good, and odds are that if you don't have Insomniac in that mix, you're not going to find anyone who really blows the doors off this franchise the way they did.
Nikki just mentioned in chat that Sunset Overdrive came out in October 2014. Mm-hmm. So August, 3 months after.
Yeah. So
they were pitched the Spider-Man license, Sunset Overdrive was released.
Mm-hmm. So there was...
That's odd timing.
So you wonder who in that room knew or had any contact with Sunset Overdrive at that point. I don't know. Like,
interesting, huh?
It's I just don't think the Microsoft of 2014 had that kind of vision. I have a hard time seeing a scenario back then with the people who were, you know, we were talking about the Microsoft that like decided to make the Xbox One basically a set-top box and de-emphasize all the video game elements and dismantle their second-party network. That they are still, you know, they're still in the process of rebuilding from the choices that were made 10 years ago.
Right.
I don't think the Microsoft of that time period had the capability of getting a good Spider-Man game out the door.
And so you think it Sony worked out well for both sides?
I mean, I don't know.
Because Xbox would have wasted a ton of money.
I don't think it would have made a difference to Microsoft, really. And I think it would have horribly damaged the Spider-Man license, and it would have...
Beyond what Activision had already done with this prior
and it would have deprived Sony of a, you know, 15 million seller plus whatever Miles did plus whatever Spider-Man, you know, there's huge franchise right there. That's one of their tent poles now.
Yeah.
And it would have definitely affected the financial futures of Insomniac, because I'm pretty sure that their work on this is one of the reasons Sony acquired them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would have changed the financial futures of a lot of people involved. But I really don't think Microsoft really comes out any worse or better either way. I think Microsoft would still be in the situation where they'd had all their stuff dismantled and they'd have to be slowly rebuilding stuff, and they still have nothing to release this year. And you know, I don't think it would have changed anything. I think you would have gotten another mediocre Spider-Man game if that game ever even came out.
Right.
Like a bunch of the stuff Microsoft worked on at that time never saw the light of day in the end. So... no, I don't have any confidence in that mid-2010s Microsoft to even get this thing out the door, let alone make something good. I think in the end, everyone got what they wanted and got what they deserved. So,
do you think that Spider-Man is a console seller? Do you think anyone buys PlayStation consoles because of Spider-Man games?
I did.
Did really? Well, I mean, you're going to buy it no matter what.
I'm going to buy it no matter what, but one of the main reason I wanted a PS5 on launch day was so I could play Miles Morales on a PS5.
But I mean, you can also play it on PS4.
I didn't want to.
Do you think for the general public that the Spider-Man games are...
yeah?
Convince them to buy consoles?
I know 3 people who bought a PS4 for Spider-Man.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or PS4 Pro.
Right. Yeah. Or, I mean, did it come out... when did it come out in the PS4's life cycle?
What was that? I'm
trying to remember.
Can't remember.
2017? Is that right?
That was a long time ago.
Well, they signed the deal in the end of 2014, so you figure it takes at least 2 years.
2017. Was that? Yeah, maybe it was 2018. 2018. It was the end of 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're not really relying on any game to sell consoles at that point.
No, but I definitely know people who bought a PS4 Pro. You know, when one of them already had a PS4
and upgraded.
But they
for
upgraded
Spider-Man.
to play Spider-Man the best they could.
Yeah. Why do you think Spider-Man is so big?
Because he's the biggest superhero in the history of the superheroes.
But why though?
I think because he's...
what is it about Spider-Man?
I think it's because he's a person. Like that,
he's a normal human.
He's relatable. Like that was why he's always been. Like he was the first superhero to be a person, to be a teenager with normal problems. Like that was the whole concept of Marvel in the 60s.
The duality of his life
was the idea of like The idea of like he had money problem, because Superman, Batman was a millionaire, and
right.
And Superman had a steady job and never worried about rent or anything. So, Spider-Man, his life sucked. He had to worry about where his next meal was coming from, but he was throwing himself out there to do the right thing anyway. Like that was a compelling idea. There's always been. The shorthand for the difference between Marvel and DC is the DC superheroes are gods trying to learn how to be men, and Marvel superheroes are men trying to be gods.
Interesting. I never heard that before.
With the exception, even Thor, they got into a more human version of Thor. That was the idea, was like, take the mythic off these guys and just give powers to a normal person to see what that was
what happens.
Marvel's characters were always more flawed and always were a little more subject to the whims of fate and that kind of thing. It's why Iron Man wasn't just a rich guy who had a suit of armor. He had to struggle with the morality of making weapons and having a drinking problem and all that. And eventually, things caught up. Eventually you had stuff like the more, some of the more human characters in DC did that. Green Arrow with his sidekick was addicted to heroin at one point in the 70s. But like, and there's a lot of lessons have been learned, but Spider-Man has been popular in that regard because he is a relatable character. He is a human being who happens to have great responsibility thrust upon him. That's what's compelling about him, and he reacts. Hopefully, he reacts the way a lot of us might react in those situations, and that's interesting. I think they've taken some risks with the character in recent years. Even in the portrayal in these games, where he's more of a super genius and he works at a lab, he's not really struggling in the way he used to. And I think that's one of the reasons that Miles Morales has risen in popularity, not just because of the diversity quotient, but because Miles is kind of more Peter Parker than Peter Parker is now. Miles is Miles is more street level now. Miles has the relatable problems. Miles is trying to figure out how to live his life. Peter's kind of figured it out to some degree, especially in these games. It feels like Spider-Man kind of has it together for the most part, outside of the tragedy that happens in the first game, especially in Miles Morales' game. Like, you're like, oh, Peter's doing great. Like, but Miles got to figure shit out. And doesn't want to ask Peter for help because Peter's kind of got his own thing going on. Like, and that's a compelling situation too. Yeah. Like I think and Spider-Man also has always had exposure. Like Spider-Man has had an animated TV show on the air since the 60s.
Like I grew up with it as a kid. I was obsessed with it every day. I couldn't wait for Spider-Man.
The first live action, right. The Power Rangers genre was invented by Spider-Man.
Yeah, we talked about the Spider-Man films last week when we were talking about Evil Dead.
That was the Japanese version of Spider-Man decided to just make him a guy who put a spider outfit on and had a giant transforming robot, and that was the first giant robot TV show. That was the first Power Ranger style Super Sentai, the Ranger show that's premiered in 1974 and is what they used footage from to make Power Rangers and have for the last 30 years. 30 years.
Yeah.
If they made Back to the Future today, Marty McFly would go back to 1992.
That's crazy.
So he's been hugely influential. Everybody knows who Spider-Man is. There was also a weird thing where, like, one of the thing the amazing thing about Spider-Man as a character is how well Stan Lee and all the people who've written him since sort of figured out how people of different types and different walks would react to him. And I remember as a kid seeing the cartoon and seeing Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends and reading the comics and thinking that J. Jonah Jameson was ridiculous because, like, he thought Spider-Man was creepy and like Aunt May thought he was scary, and I was like, who would think that guy's scary? Who would think he's scary? And he's bright red. And my mom, I remember, when she found out I liked Spider-Man, was like, oh, I don't like Spider-Man. I think he's creepy. And I'm like, oh, that's like real people do think that he's. Why do you think he's creepy? Like, I don't know. He crouches down and he's like a spider and it's weird. And it's like, oh my god, my mom's J. Jonah Jameson.
That's funny.
So like there was a verisimilitude to him that just wasn't there for a lot of the other superheroes, including Marvel. I mean, the Avengers were like that too. The Avengers felt like cops basically when I was growing up, and they still do to some degree.
They do. Yeah, they feel like the world cops, Spider-Man, the galaxy cops.
Yeah, and Spider-Man. There's a reason it took Spider-Man until the 2000s to join the Avengers.
Well, to your point, a lot of people in chat are saying that Spider-Man is really important to them.
Yeah.
Shneeky says, I know 3 people who bought PS4s for Spidey, the red PS4. Justin Horman says Spider-Man 2 is the reason I'm going to get a PS5 eventually.
Yeah.
Erebus Jones
that's a good reason.
Erebus Jones says Spider-Man is the reason I want to own a PS5. Spider-Man was the game of last gen for me. Wow, that's a bold statement.
But it's not an uncommon one.
Yeah, I would never say that, but I'm a big Spider-Man fan too. And then Justin Horman brings up that either this year or next, it's Spider-Man's 60th anniversary.
Yep.
A lot of people talking about how New York is a great setting for video games and stuff like that. So, yeah, there's a lot of cachet. It's odd to me because I don't feel this way about Spider-Man. And I have been a Spider-Man fan since I was a child. I mean, he's probably my favorite superhero.
There are degrees of Spider-Man fandom, though.
I guess so, yeah. And I haven't ascended to that upper echelon of Spider-Man fans.
It's something you'll realize when you get really into the various superhero fandoms. There are characters that mean a tremendous amount to people that hit on a certain vibrational frequency for them that nothing else ever has, and that they hold very close to their hearts. And that's one of the reasons these Marvel movies are so popular, is because the MCU movies have found a way to sort of engage that sort of phenomenon with people who go just see the movies and don't read the comics. Yeah. That's one of the things that people who are constantly sort of like ragging on the Marvel movies don't seem to get. Like, why are they so popular? Because people want to see these characters over and over again. Yeah. People want to revisit this stuff, and like so. I've run into people, and like it's weird how people latch on to one or the other. Like I've run into people whose lives would be different if Captain America wasn't part of it. Right. And like you could be anything. Like there's people who think Daredevil, who use Daredevil as a touchstone for their lives. And I'm like, I can't imagine caring about Daredevil to that degree.
Yeah.
Daredevil was to me growing up. Daredevil was basically like boring Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like he was like the other guy.
Well, I think the Netflix show helped a ton with that. I really liked the Netflix show. I didn't care about
Netflix
Daredevil
show did not make me think Daredevil was any less boring.
Really? I thought the first season was great. Second season
was good start, good end. But like almost all Netflix shows, the middle was just a slog. They're making a new one,
Yeah, they revived it, right?
Not yet, but they're going to do a new Daredevil series that is actually part of the MCU. And I know the Netflix ones are supposed to be part of the MCU, but they really aren't.
Yeah, most of the Netflix stuff for Marvel, I would not assume that that's part of canon.
No. I wouldn't think so.
But again, I really did like the Daredevil series. I thought the first season was great.
Moments. I thought the Daredevil, it also came up with a actual interesting way to portray the Punisher. Yep. Which is unusual. Yeah. I was actually interested in what was going to happen with him, and then they decided
casted as well.
Then they he's coming back. So, but then they decided to just have the second half of the second season be about a very boring spin on how Elektra and the Hand works. See, that's the thing that I think is going to make it obvious that the new Daredevil stuff is not canon, that the Netflix stuff is not being ignored, is I don't think there's any way that Feige is going to not want to do Elektra correctly. So I think we'll see. I will say that I was not a huge fan of Charlie Cox in the role of Daredevil, but I really loved what he did in the 5 minutes he was in Spider-Man No Way Home. So I'm like, oh, maybe it was just the material. Like, he already won me over more as Daredevil in that one scene than he had in all of season 1 of Daredevil.
I have a question, actually.
So I'm looking forward to that. But again, these characters mean a ton to people. Yeah. And Spider-Man is probably more than, Spider-Man, Batman, Wonder Woman. Those are probably your holy trinity of characters that people like get tattoos of, I would think,
I have a question for you, and you can probably answer this. How do they explain...
Holy quadrilogy, rather. There's 4 of those guys. I mentioned 4 people, not 3.
Yeah. How do they explain the eyes on Spider-Man's suit emoting? Like changing for his facial expressions.
In the context of like these games and like the MCU, they are computer controlled. They are reacting to his facial expression. In the comics, that just started to be a thing that artists did.
Okay.
They have never explained that.
They haven't
in the comics.
Okay.
Really. And sometimes some artists don't do that, but a lot of them do. But you just don't think about it. That's all. Like, I can't remember when that started. I think sometime in the late 70s, early 80s, where like, he would squint with them to like show skepticism and stuff. I think that's just basically an artistic license thing.
Okay.
And then I think the movies basically started making it be the MCU movies have it be Iron Man tech. But it also can just the Daredevil movie, not Daredevil, Deadpool. The Deadpool movies, his eyes do that, but there's no explanation for it. They're just animated.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. I just wondered if they'd ever explained it.
It's just
because usually they do explain stuff like that somehow.
They tend to, but in the case of that is basically just it's better to be able to have him make facial expressions.
Yeah,
that's all.
Obviously, yep. So anyway, there you go. That's the history of Spider-Man video games. I think they're in pretty safe hands now. What do you say, Matt?
Yeah, I think
I think we're good.
Very, very not concerned about that one. Maybe the only superhero I'm not concerned about.
Yeah, and then you do start to wonder, like, at what point does Insomniac burn out on making Spider-Man games, and does it?
Well, that's kind of the
attempt to kind of get out from underneath it a little bit.
That's the kind of genius of it. Is like, I don't think you run out of Spider-Man stories.
No, you won't.
Like, you can, and like they got the template. You don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. Mm-hmm. At most, you could go to another location. Like at some point, that's the main thing with Spider-Man. I think at some point, New York's going to get boring, and you're going to have to like figure something else out. But the genius of it is like you can still put New York in the game. Like even a Spider-Man game where he ends up in another city or another planet or another dimension or whatever, like you can still have New York there. See, that's what I think, and I don't know what I think.
And you've already built it, so
we've already built it. Might as well throw it in. I think, I mean, obviously Spider-Man 2 seems like it's leaning on the Kraven Venom thing, and I imagine there's some Green Goblin in there somewhere, something going on there. But I think the obvious place to go for the third one is multiverse, and there, I mean, you could basically do Shattered Dimensions, but good.
Do it right, yeah.
You do noir. You basically reskin New York and a bunch of you have noir, and you could have 2099. You could have you could do an animated. How great would it be to have like these Spider-Man? This Peter and Miles end up in the 1960s Spider-Man,
like
cell shaded and all animated out with like bad animation.
Oh, I would love that.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing. I think you rip the multiverse open for the third one and make that be like a potential big finale. And if someone and from there on, if I'm Insomniac, I'm like, okay, we can still make more of these, but we need some ideas worth doing. Like you need to give me a reason to make another. If I'm Ted Price, whoever's running Insomniac at that point, I'm like, pitch me, like. Tell me why we need to make another Spider-Man game that isn't just because it's going to sell 20 million copies.
Yeah.
Because if it's just going to sell 20 million copies and that's it, Sony can move it. Sony can make, I don't know, Sony Bend to make it or something. We'll support them or whatever. But if Insomniac's going to spend their time on it, I think, and look, I don't think there's going to be a shortage of people with great ideas for it. At the very least, I mean, I vaguely know the guy who just got promoted to lead animator on Spider-Man 2, and that guy... him alone could probably come up with another 10 games worth of stories for these things with gameplay.
I'm not worried about the stories. It's just like the IP, working on the same IP for that long, the same animations and just everything. Like the other thing too is you have turnover, you have new people coming in, and maybe you put new people on the Spider-Man stuff.
This guy started as like a assistant animator on the first one, barely had any experience. Like he never gets. He animated almost all of Miles' weird trick stuff in midair.
Oh,
like. He came up with all that stuff.
Wow.
Like a whole
Impressive
bunch of
work.
like a lot of it, like probably like 60% of it. Like, and it's just stuff he thought of. Just something he was like, oh, what if he could do this? Like, and the one thing that he did say was, it never gets old. Okay. Spider-Man can do anything. Like, coming up with a new thing for Spider-Man to like look at the creativity just in the combat animations that you never even see. If you unless you like record it and play it back like for B-roll like this, like. That can go forever, and there's always going to be another animator that comes along that has their own
some
ideas
other new spin on
how Spider-Man should move or Spider-Man should fight.
Yeah,
like that's the beauty of having it be this eternal like evergreen IP is you're always going to have someone who's excited to work on it.
Yeah.
So I think Insomniac can keep that going for a very long time if they choose to. And I don't know what the deal is there because they're owned by Sony. I mean, maybe Sony could just order them to. But Sony doesn't seem to really roll
like that. It could.
Like
Absolutely, it could.
But they don't really seem to roll like that.
Yeah.
And also, once you've got Insomniac's kind of framework in place, there's no reason you can't like hand it over to somebody else and be like, hey, take your own shot at it.
Yeah.
But I think Insomniac's going to need to have first refusal on that.
Yeah.
But I think we will definitely get a few more Spider-Man games.
From Insomniac, you mean?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. They've got enough bandwidth in the teams that you could probably cross people over, and maybe somebody that has maybe someone's tired of animating, zombies. And people being gruesomely murdered by Ellie, and then they would like to draw the Shocker for a while. Like maybe you could do some transfers here and there.
Okay, so there you go. That's the past, present, and future of the Spider-Man IP. One that I know is near and dear to all your hearts. What'd you say?
Wolverine. Wolverine is the other. Good point, retro current gamer. Wolverine's the other superhero I'm not worried about because Insomniac's making that one too.
Yeah, I almost forgot about that because we got that little teaser and we haven't seen anything since.
Well, I mean, I think that one's way down the line, but.
Yeah. Yep.
I hope we get something worthy of Wolverine Origins, where Raven accidentally got a year to polish it and it
right,
turned out great. Like that.
Well, it's coming from Insomniac. I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. I hope it's rated M though. I hope they give us a real
Wolverine game.
Wolverine thing.
I would be surprised if it's rated M.
I would,
but
not.
I'm rooting for it. But
I would
be
not.
Surprised. Really?
No, I mean, remember Logan. I mean, they don't have a lot to say over what Fox did, but Logan was a big hit. Like, that Wolverine is a functional R-rated character, if you want him to be. Also, like, they're pushing some boundary. I mean, the gore in Doctor Strange 2 is about as far as you can push a PG-13 these days.
Really?
It's
got some gore in it.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I mean, a lot of it's implied because it's not like, but like, it's directed by the guy who did Evil Dead.
Right.
Like, there's a couple things in there.
He pushes it a little bit.
There's a couple things in there.
Okay.
And like I think they're kind of leaning that way, and like they're about to do a Blade movie. Like, put it this way, there's a couple scenes in Doctor Strange 2 where I'm like, look, this is not like shocking to me because I've seen, gore beyond anything in some of the movies I've seen in my time. But I was a little surprised that it was in a Marvel movie, and I was like, oh, maybe this is how they're gonna do Blade. Okay, I'm down with that. Like, you make put Blade on that kind of edge. And not put it to R, but kind of push the PG-13 gore to about as far as you can go. I'm down with that. Yeah. So I'm wondering if they're not all that against that. And we'll see what that Midnight Suns thing looks like.
I think that's definitely going to be teen at most. Yeah.
But I think they might push it a little bit here and there.
We'll see.
Supposedly they're going to show some kind of a revamped version of that soon.
I hope so, because that's a game that hopefully comes out this year.
I don't know.
We need them.
I'm hoping they got rid of that card system.
Right.
Because that did not look very interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. Okay, there you go. That's Spider-Man, Past, Present, and Future in video games. Next up, we're going to talk about Kojima and Norman Reedus, because this week, old Norm stepped out of line, Matt. He was doing... This is what happens, though.
I saw his novel at Barnes & Noble the other day.
He has a novel?
He just got a novel out, yeah.
Like a fiction novel?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I can't remember the title. Sorry, Norman. But
do you think he really wrote it?
He probably wrote a draft of it.
He put up some bullet points.
He was in some meetings.
He handed some bullet points to the ghostwriter. Well, it's interesting because typically you don't get pop culture icons. That's probably stretching for Norman Reedus.
Yeah,
involved deeply in game development.
Let's not go crazy.
Yeah, exactly. But he has really been embedded with Kojima on Death Stranding from the beginning, and I don't think he swims enough in the games industry waters to understand how important the information that he has is to people like us.
Or maybe he understands that it's dumb that things are that tightly wound on because
that could be it too.
He's like, why wouldn't you want someone to know what you're working on?
Yeah,
like who cares?
Well. You may be right. He may just look at it like this whole thing is so dumb that I'm not going to play.
Also, like, if they're starting like mocap, like 500 people know this is happening.
Yeah.
Like the production staff for this is going to be pretty extensive.
Yeah.
It's just, it's the secrecy. Also, the secrecy thing goes way back to the old days when you were worried about someone stealing your gameplay concepts. When like you could make a game in 8 months.
Right. You could actually do that and like bring it to market.
It's not really a thing anymore.
Yeah. It's not a thing.
So.
Yep. Well, in an interview where he was discussing his real career, which is being an actor and now apparently an author, which I wasn't aware of.
A novelist.
Yeah. Yeah. He let it slip that we're working on Death Stranding 2. And we just really started working on it in earnest. And of course, then Kojima lost his mind and was like, yo, bro, like I think he worded it like you need to go to the quiet room. Which is a part of Death Stranding, and tried to make light of it, but that's about it.
Honestly, that was probably all planned.
Oh, you think it was all planned?
Kojima.
That's how they were going to announce it.
Kojima likes troll. Remember when he made the fake person?
Right.
Make up to like promote Metal Gear Solid 5 and all that.
Right.
Shit? Yeah, this is probably a stunt.
You think it was all set up?
Probably. Kojima loves that stuff. and guess what? Now we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, would we be talking? It's like, oh, Death Stranding 2, okay. But now it's like, oh, Norman Reedus let it slip. Like it's a more exciting way to announce it.
Okay.
I don't always believe the it was a leaked on purpose thing. I think a lot of that's just like nonsense. But in this case, Kojima's a troll. Like I think that probably is what happened. He was all ready with a line about the quiet room and everything. Yeah. Like I'm gonna go 50-50. This is a work.
Okay, so now that we've established it was all fake. Is this a good idea? Do we need Death Stranding 2?
I don't.
But does anyone?
I don't think anybody needs Death Stranding 1.
No, I'm being facetious. Obviously, there are people out there who liked the first Death Stranding, and they're going to want the sequel to it. But generally, the game did not sell especially well, even though it had Kojima's name on it, and even though it reviewed way too high, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, you gotta, like, the name of a developer that was popular in the 80s and 90s is not gonna really move units in the mass audience anymore. They don't know who Kojima is.
It is kind of crazy to think about it, though. Like, even Miyamoto at this point. Do most people who play games know who he is or care who he is?
Most people? No. Of course not. They never did.
I mean, I don't agree with that. I think
I do.
Back in the day when gaming was smaller, people knew who he was for sure.
Not the majority, I wouldn't say. You think the majority of people who owned a Nintendo Entertainment System knew who Shigeru Miyamoto was?
I think by the SNES and N64 era they did.
I don't think so, no.
I mean, he trotted out the N64 for all the promotion of it.
Yeah, but most people never even saw any of that.
I mean, it was all over American TV.
Do you think they remembered his name though? No one.
I think they remember what he looked like.
Hardcore people remember, but like that, even then we were still a minority.
Yeah, not as much as we are now, but back then we still were. That's for sure.
But the majority of people who bought the Nintendo 64 do not know who Shigeru Miyamoto was.
Yeah, but I mean, now it's like even people who are hardcore into it, people who watch GameFace, because let's be honest, it's the hardest of the hardcore people watch GameFace. I feel like even the cachet among that group for icons like Miyamoto and Kojima is just nowhere near what it was in like the late 90s, early aughts.
Yeah, I mean, well, just the audience has grown substantially and is made up of people that just want to play a game and don't care about all that.
Do you think that's what it is? They just don't care about the people that are making the games?
That's what the mass audience for anything is.
But why does that happen for video games, but it doesn't happen for music or film, where they worship the people who make it?
Well, I think that's, again, hardcore versus mainstream. Like, the vast majority of the people who go to see Marvel movies don't know who Kevin Feige is.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the actors who are in the films.
Well, because the actors are right in front of you. And that's not really what happens in video games.
Yeah, you don't have the people who create it actually. Well, no. Kojima does put himself in all his games pretty much, but
nobody knows.
Miyamoto doesn't. That's for sure.
Guy. Yeah, Miyamoto's been pretty low key the last 10 years. Really, I mean, he doesn't really work directly on stuff. He's just sort of a figurehead producer.
I mean, he doesn't really work on games at all anymore. No. He's working on their amusement parks and all this other, I believe, bullcrap. Like, I wish he was working on games because he's getting old, man. He's running out of time to like release a couple more opuses. Is that the correct plural for opus?
I think he's long done.
You don't think he'll ever make another game?
Like directly?
Yeah.
No.
Really?
No.
You don't think he'll make one last project?
Nope. Huh. Never.
That's really disappointing to hear. I hope you're wrong on that one.
I think it would be I think it would be somewhat considered beneath him.
To make a video game. Yeah, that's pathetic. That's all. That's what they do. That's what Nintendo does. It makes games.
But he's too big for that.
I don't think he is. I think it's the best thing he could do is make a video game.
That may be true, but it's not going to happen.
Wow. That sucks. So to your point, you're saying, okay, you don't equate actors to people like Miyamoto or whatever.
Not. They're directors.
Right. So let's think about the directors and the producers of the MCU and stuff like that. Do you think the same percentage of moviegoers know who those people are as the percentage of game players know who Miyamoto and Kojima are?
I'd say it's about that.
Yeah. You think it's equal?
Roughly.
Yeah.
Like, knowing who... I mean, look, man, I can't name all the directors of the MCU movies because they rotate so much. I know who Kevin Feige is. But the number of people who, there's maybe 10 directors in all of Hollywood that people know off the top of their heads if you ask them if they're just random movie fans,
Yeah.
Spielberg, George Lucas, even though he only directed like 4 movies. Who else? David Fincher, maybe. Yeah. Scorsese, Coppola, like classics that go back to before we were born. Yeah. In some cases, Christopher Nolan. It's hundreds of movies come out every year. Nobody, people know maybe 10 directors off the top of their head?
Probably.
Like it's just not that common. And
I think
and even worse when you get down to producers, which is more what I would associate a lot of like the video game big names with, or producers. And with that, it's just like you mostly only know about a producer if they did something wrong.
Yeah,
like Harvey Weinstein.
I guess the music industry is a closer analog to what I was getting at.
Yeah, but again, you're talking about front people versus like the guy who mixed the album.
Yeah.
You know, like how many producers...
Or maybe comparing like the lead singer to like the drummer.
The drummer, right.
Yeah.
Like I know the lead singer of The Cure, but I don't know who the drummer of The Cure is necessarily, you know?
Yeah.
How often does the drummer change and no one even notices, for that matter? I mean,
a lot of times they're swapped out.
We can't all be Neil Peart.
Yeah.
Right? That's one of the few drummers I know.
Well, that's a good one to know.
Phil Collins.
He's one of the best.
Phil
Collins also one of the best
drummers.
drummers.
That's kind of cheating, though.
He doesn't drum. He quit drumming eventually. Yeah.
You know.
But early Genesis, like if you remember the early music videos, he was playing the drums in the music videos. Yeah, it's bizarre how that happened.
And then he started getting up and doing the microphone. Then he could cut back to him still playing. How are you playing the drums and he's singing?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Erebus Jones says Kojima isn't an icon; he's a cult leader.
Yeah, some of that. Yeah.
Flea / people are starting to name off like backing artists that people recognize, but the fact that they're having to list them.
But what's Slash's real name?
Right.
What's Flea's real name? Like it helps when you have a call sign like that, you know?
Sneaky just brought up Taylor Hawkins, the drummer from Foo Fighters, who just died.
Oh, yeah.
Increasingly, it's looking like it was an overdose.
Yeah, well, look, to be fair, I would not have known his name until I read those articles either.
Yeah, you wouldn't have known until he died.
Yeah.
Yeah, most people wouldn't have. And he's like the second front man. Like, he sings some for Foo Fighters.
And look, I would think of myself as pretty much, you know, as in terms of music, I am much more of kind of like the person who doesn't know Kevin Feige's name, or the person who doesn't know me. Like I do not follow music particularly closely. I've never even my favorite bands, I don't know who
is in the band.
Like I love The National. I've seen them like 7 or 8 times, but all I know is the lead singer's name is Matt.
That's it.
Like that's about as far as it goes. Like it's just not a thing that I devote brain power to.
Yeah, it's interesting how in some industries I guess in almost all of them you have to be front and center before people are going to remember you. People do not dig and investigate at who's creating the art that they really love, which is interesting, I think.
Like I can count on probably one hand the number of bands that I know all the members of, and it's like Aerosmith,
the Beatles, like the iconic bands,
the Rolling Stones, AC/DC, you know, like things like that. Whereas like a lot of others, like you know, even
like I can't remember the drummer or the bass player for Guns N' Roses.
Yeah. What was it? Dizzy? He's a guitarist.
I think you're thinking of Duff.
Yes. And then, even like some of my favorite bands, like I just know the lead singer.
Yeah. I think a lot of people that are that way. Because they're in the music videos. They're the people who are on camera most. Right. They get all the interviews. They do the interviews.
They're the ones standing there. They're usually the best looking.
It is always interesting, though, because they're not always the most interesting people or the people who know the music or how the music was created the best.
That's true.
They're the ones who end up going front and center for a lot of the interviews. Let's get back to the nuts and bolts of creating another Death Stranding game. Do you believe that a second game will build on the audience from the first game, or do you think that the audience from the first game has hurt the potential future audience for the sequel?
I don't know. I think it depends what it is. If it's just another UPS simulator, I don't see how you make any headway, really.
And then it's a big problem as far as messaging that this isn't a delivery sim. That's not easy.
Well, especially when you're Kojima and you don't like to tell anyone what your games are.
Right. And that doesn't help either.
The idea that Kojima would get in front of anybody and be like, oh, this isn't like the last one, it's this instead. Like, that would be the most out-of-character thing he's ever done. Like, so I don't know. I mean, I imagine it's just going to be more of, it's going to be the same but more kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you think that has a chance to be successful?
I mean, I imagine it would do about as well as the first one.
It feels like it's...
I think this thing has kind of a cap on it. You know
yeah, me too. It feels like the low-hanging fruit for Kojima's team. It's like we have all these character models. We have all this work that we've done already on this IP.
There's also an element of like, look, if I thought... Sort of like Stranger Things at this point, which is about to hit Season 4. If I thought there was going to be a compelling answer or compelling conclusion or a compelling story in here, I would be much more excited about Stranger Things Season 4. And with Death Stranding 2, it's the same way. Like, if I thought you had any answers or any like resolution or any interesting things to say about the situation you've set up in this world, I would be much more interesting.
No, I didn't finish this game.
But neither did I, because who's got that kind of time?
I'm wondering if, like, towards the end, if something happened with the story that made it more interesting.
I don't know. I've read synopses, and I can't remember what happened anyway. Like, I read the spoilers for it. I'm saying, so how does this end? I remember just being like, okay, sure. I tell you, the only thing that I really enjoyed about this game was, like, building highways with people. Like, I thought it was cool that you could build a giant highway and just, like, ignore the rest of the game.
I liked
driving
the
an
world.
Electric vehicle.
I liked the antagonists. I liked the mystery behind it until it wasn't a mystery.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the mystery is good until you... Just like every Kojima thing is like, oh, the questions are interesting and the answers are terrible.
That's a good way to put it, actually. It's easy to formulate really great questions around his stuff before you play it, and then you get the answers, and they're never... The scenarios that I've created in my mind are better than what he ultimately created.
Maybe that was happening with all the trailers where you were like, "Oh my god, this is so interesting." I'm like, no, whatever the answer to this is going to be stupid.
You did say that, yeah.
And sure enough, like I would have been glad to be wrong on that one because again, like there's some striking imagery in this game, and I'm sure there will be in the next game.
Fire Native says, "I love how original Kojima is with his naming Quiet the person that doesn't talk."
Doesn't talk, yeah. Again.
Who do you think is the most overrated game developer in the industry, Matt? Of the guys that people do know,
of all of the big guys, yeah. I mean, it's Kojima.
You think it is?
I mean, there's a angry voice in my head that wants to say David Cage, but he's honestly not big enough to be overrated.
People do know who he is, though.
Yeah, but a lot of the people know who he is now because he runs an abusive monster company.
Right.
So it can't hire enough people to make a Star Wars game.
Yeah.
Which is like. I want to talk about something that you should not have to like put out extra want ads for.
Yeah.
Somebody should want Star Wars on their resume more than they fear working for you.
What about Sid Meier?
Sid Meier's not overrated.
No.
I don't think
he's built a big name for creating one game.
I mean, he did a couple. He did Civilization, Alpha Centauri.
Right. No, I mean just like one franchise that he's worked on. Most developers.
Also, I think he sold his name to that for a long time.
He was smart to force them to put his name in the title of the games. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of that is not, a lot of people I think say Sid Meier's whatever without even thinking about the fact that it's a person.
Yeah. But Will Wright, I think he's earned his reputation.
More or less.
Miyamoto's earned his reputation.
Miyamoto has, Yuji Naka, you could argue.
Yeah,
he's overrated. I don't know who really overrates him anymore.
I don't know if he is overrated.
There was a time when I think he would have been in that category.
Yeah.
Now it's just sort of sad. American McGee.
Yeah. Neil Druckmann, he's earned his reputation.
He's earned it. Cliff Bleszinski, think he.
Yeah, I think he's earned his reputation. Yeah.
And Cliff's reputation isn't all good.
Yeah.
So and.
It's not.
You just stop.
And he's earned all of it, though.
Yeah. And he owns it.
He earned the good and the bad.
And he owns it.
Yeah, he does.
He would like everyone to stop bringing Lawbreakers up every day. But, anytime he says anything, it's like, Lawbreakers, like, shut up. Yeah.
Well, I was surprised, too, that Reggie, I've been reading some of his book, and he actually had more input on stuff at Nintendo than I thought. I really thought he was just, this figurehead guy that they trotted out for stuff. But he was actually in meetings where... Mm-hmm. They decided important things, and he ended up being the one who was right on a lot of stuff. At least according to him, anyway, in his book.
Molyneux.
Did he earn it?
I think he earned it back in the day, and then he lost it.
Yeah. Because he mishandled it.
Because that's the problem, is I don't know anyone who touts Molyneux as a...
Not anymore.
Game, it was a rise and a fall. It wasn't like a, it's like Kojima is you're sitting here what? Nomura.
Yeah. Nomura. He's overrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nomura.
Spectre, he's earned his reputation.
Spectre earned it.
Yep.
Who needs to be taken down a peg is that Mavis Beacon.
Who?
Mavis Beacon. You know Mavis Beacon?
I don't know him.
Mavis Beacon teaches typing.
No.
She's a fictional woman who teaches from this typing series.
You know Mavis Beacon? No, I don't know who that is.
There's a typing not a game, but they're they teach you typing. It's called Mavis Beacon Teaches Typing, and she's a fictional black woman who is supposedly the person teaching you typing, but she doesn't exist.
Oh.
But all the software is called Mavis Beacon Teaches Typing or Mavis Beacons whatever.
Okay. No, I'm not familiar with that at all.
That's how one of the ways I learned to type was through Mavis Beacon, and that's one of my you remember they used to have those video game title generators back in the day.
Yeah.
And it would just generate a funny title or whatever. One of my favorite ones I ever got in the history of all those generators was Mavis Beacon Teaches Punching. Which is
that's pretty good.
If you know the clean cut wholesome image of Mavis Beacon in those typing games, that Mavis Beacon doing karate instruction is one of the greatest images I've ever had in my head.
Mike's Q brings up Tom Clancy, but he was a writer.
He was a brand name.
They just slapped his name on there. He's not.
Tom Clancy didn't even write most of his books. Forget that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think what I heard was the last Tom Clancy book that Tom Clancy actually really wrote was Rainbow Six.
Oh.
And that was when I was in high school.
Yeah, that was a long, long time ago. Who else? It's even worth bringing up.
Chris Roberts, that's a good one.
Yeah, Ted Price, he's earned his reputation.
Chris Roberts made one game and a terrible movie and then vanished and then came back and found the NFT scam before there were NFTs.
Yeah.
Star Citizen is pretty
kind of is.
How else do you describe buying imaginary spaceships that you are totally going to be able to use later? I promise.
That you will never use. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you.
I was just going over with some people like the Kickstarters that I've backed that never delivered, and there's 3. Clang, which was that motion simulator sword fighting game that Neil Stephenson was involved in, and then just was like, oh, we were just going to give you a demo, bye, and they vanished.
Yeah.
This other thing called Kitaru, which was just like a JRPG-ish sort of thing that the guy just vanished 7 years ago, and Star Citizen.
Yeah.
Still has not delivered. Huh. Almost 10 years. Coming up on our 10-year anniversary.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
The Kickstarter was 2012.
I do think that most games industry icons, I think they've earned their reputation, though, on the whole.
Part. The thing about Kojima is, it's not like Kojima should quit or stuff.
Yeah.
It's just that,
he's not, embarrassing himself.
It's like you're not. It's not you're not allowed to criticize him, but it's just it's like his fans don't hold him to any standards.
Yeah.
They
let everything just go.
Even the most diehard Miyamoto fans I know will be pretty honest about the shortcomings of Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
Anything. Kojima is the only only fan base I can think of that just will not allow the idea that he did anything wrong.
That he's anything less than perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even when you're staring it in the face.
Yeah. 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 But Sam Lake from Remedy, Cinetype brings up. Yeah. I don't know that he's an icon, really.
Yeah, Yu Suzuki. That's the thing is a lot of these guys just don't have that rep anymore.
Yeah, because they've fallen off. Yeah,
or they just haven't done anything in forever.
They haven't really managed to stay relevant. A lot of Japanese
and they just don't have
look,
Yu Suzuki's made some of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah,
but is anyone holding him up as some kind of icon in the way they do with Kojima even to this day?
Well, after Shenmue 3, definitely not.
No, definitely not. But you know what makes Shenmue 3 a lot better?
Not playing it.
No, the patch, the fan-made patch I found that removes stamina from the game.
Oh, really?
That makes it a lot better.
You have to play it on PC then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, there you go. You think that this was all a setup?
I think it's pretty likely that this is how they intended to, reveal it.
Yeah. And it hasn't seemed to really do much.
We're
talking about it, but it's the slowest damn year for video games.
They don't have
ever.
anything to show, so we might as well start the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see something next month or something.
Are you surprised how buddy Norman and Kojima became?
No.
They're friends. They're not just coworkers.
No. Kojima has always been something of a star fucker, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
He just wants to be
apart.
He wants to be where the people are. Mm-hmm. He's a little mermaid about some of that stuff. You always want to be in Hollywood. And I guess Norman Reedus is about as far as he's going to get.
As close as he's going to get, you mean?
And I guess Reedus finds him interesting. I don't know what Reedus sees in him. I feel like money. Maybe,
that's what he sees in him.
But it's not like Reedus doesn't have other things going on.
I don't know.
He's got a book coming out. He got stuff. He's in stuff. Look.
The Walking Dead's winding down. That's where he's made all his money.
Yeah.
It's literally on its last 4 episodes right now. It's in its finale season, mid-season break right now.
Yeah, but he's established. He's a character actor. He'll always have work.
He'll always be the gruffy motorcycle dude.
You're always gonna need a character that looks like Norman Reedus.
Yeah, in some way. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know if he's the right pick for what's his face in
the character from Death Stranding.
He
does seem like a weird choice.
Yeah, I spent the whole of Death Stranding waiting for him to turn out to be some slimy weirdo. You know, and I guess he's not supposed to. He's supposed to be a good dude that you're rooting for, right? But Norman Reedus just makes me think he's hiding something,
right?
I always.
He only has one character. That's his problem. Yeah. He can't play multiple characters. He plays Norman Reedus.
But that's what a character actor does. There's a huge market and a huge niche for people who can do that.
Yeah. For his character in particular.
Yeah, and he does it well. Yeah. It's just he seems like what's his name?
In what? In
Death Stranding?
I don't even
remember.
remember.
Do you remember the character's name?
Something Porter, right?
Porter, yeah. Sam
Porter. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, like Sam, like I think Sam's supposed to be like an up and up, straight up, likable guy who just has some problems and some reluctance, and obviously he's got issues. But like, I don't think you're supposed to suspect him of anything.
No,
and I constantly do because I think Norman Reedus is just sort of like makes me think, and maybe it's just because of who he played on Walking Dead. But I'm like,
well, he's also the anti-hero on Walking Dead.
Yeah, I'm just like, what is he really up to?
Yeah,
and the answer seems to be nothing. Like,
yeah, it's the same in Walking Dead.
Yeah,
he always ends up being the good guy who saves the day at the end.
Yeah, how often can you subvert my expectations before my expectations are not that expectation anymore?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So anyway, we're getting another Death Stranding. I couldn't care less.
No. I mean, unless it turns out to be something like really different.
I would just prefer that Kojima keeps throwing stuff against a wall until he finds something.
Yeah, it'd be more interesting to see him try a new game.
Do something else again, man, because this isn't it. This is not going to be your next Metal Gear. It's not.
No.
It's not going to happen. And if that's what you're shooting for, which you should, if you want your studio to be successful, you need to throw something else against the wall and see if it sticks. Because this did not. It stuck for some people, not with enough, unfortunately.
No.
Which is why it appeared on PC not that long after it was available as a PlayStation exclusive. So there you go. That's the latest on Death Stranding. A sequel is on the way. Next up, one of the few games we actually did manage to play this week, although much to Matt's chagrin, is Vampire the Masquerade Swansong. It is a narrative-driven detective adventure. There's not a lot of action in it.
No, it's like basically what if David Cage games had no budget?
Like his first game, Fahrenheit, basically.
Yeah, it is a little bit. In fact,
it
looks a little bit like Fahrenheit at times. Minus the giant fleas.
I just connected those dots. It does appear to be a lot like Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
What was the studio that developed this? Do you know?
I can't remember, but they made the last vampire game to Coterie or Council.
Oh.
I don't think they've done a whole lot.
Doesn't appear.
I don't want to shock you, but yeah. Yeah.
Let's get this B-roll rolling here, because this is where we're at, people.
Oh, that's good. You get to see the pop in there.
Yeah, this is set in the World of Darkness universe. Yeah. We've been waiting for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 for forever.
And we're going to keep waiting.
It's been delayed three times.
I think that game's dead.
It may be dead. That game, people wanted it for over a decade now.
Yep.
And we thought we were getting it, and now it looks like it's stalled again. And instead we get this, which is literally...
We've got a few World of Darkness games. Like there's been two other vampire games. There's that terrible werewolf game.
Yeah. Although I think it was better than this.
Arguably. Yeah, I mean, it moved faster.
You're really splitting hairs there.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot more action involved.
Yeah, I mean, the vampire games, when you get down to the tabletop game, is not especially action-oriented most of the time.
Yeah.
Like, this is a valid way to go with this. Also, this guy, Caleb, I cannot get over how much he looks like Agent York from Deadly Premonition with a beard.
Oh, I think he looks like, what's his name from Deus Ex?
I didn't ask for this guy. Yeah. He look the facial structure on him. It's the Agent York from Deadly Premonition, like with the dead eyes and shit. Like it's amazing.
Yeah. Fire Native is asking like the Darkness universe, like the game The Darkness. No.
The World of Darkness is a gothic punk. It was Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf, the Apocalypse, Mage the Ascension. All that. It was a tabletop RPG thing from the early '90s. And has gone on to today. And at some point, somebody bought was it Platonic or something? They bought the license from the property from White Wolf, which was basically just languishing under CCP.
It's definitely not Platonic. Platonic is like the old
I can't remember
guys.
Who bought. Somebody bought and basically it's just been like licensing it out to whoever wants to make a video game out of it, which is why we're getting all this shovelware.
It's trash.
Yeah. So the one thing I will give this game is it does a pretty good job of translating the
character models are so bad.
Yeah, it's bad.
Look at that.
But it translates the skill and conversational systems and persuasion systems of the tabletop game pretty well to a video game.
Oh yeah,
like you got the skill tree that's a rough equivalent. You can spend points of hunger and willpower to use them and to influence people in conversation. Like it's very negotiation and subterfuge oriented. It's very inclusive. Like I think it's pretty cool. There's there's a huge diverse cast here. This one character has vitiligo, which is pretty cool. No one ever mentions it. Like
I have never seen that in a video game.
No,
before.
that's a first for me too. Which is cool. Like, I'm into that. But like other than that, I'm kind of out of nice things to say about this game. This game is rough.
Yeah, it is
rough. Like. You can look at, this is the game, like watching people talk like this. And I don't know if you've noticed also the little pop-up. Look, man, like I played the tabletop game back in 30 years ago, back in the day. I vaguely kept up with it. I'm somewhat familiar with how it works today and like how the updated systems they use now. And if I didn't know all that and wasn't bringing it to this game, I'd have no idea what any of this is. Like I don't know what they're like. They explain a couple things in this where I'm like, what? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And like they explain it wrong. And there's like things where it's like you when you talk to people and you need to use your abilities to sort of like influence them or you for a certain answer or for a certain question, you can use focus to boost at the cost of willpower, which is a limited resource you have until you sleep or suck blood or whatever. You can boost it and up your chances, but boosting it ups the chance that they will boost their score. So you might still turn out with a tie.
It's like a waste.
Basically, it's a coin flip to see if you succeed or not. But they don't the game doesn't tell you what the percentage you've increased their likelihood to boost their score was until after they do it.
Oh.
I'm like, well, then who cares? It's like they boosted it. Like, oh, they boosted it. Yeah, the likelihood of the focus boost was 100%. I'm like, well, that doesn't do me any good now, does it? Like, what? And like, there is an encouragement here of like replaying stuff because like at the end of sections, you get like a list of like, okay, here's all the things you accomplished. Here's all your successes. Here's the things you could have done differently, and here's the things you failed at. And based on so it's actually kind of nice. Like, it's like, okay, so if you play this again, these are things you could have done differently. And so they give you an idea, at least, of where the branches are.
But then you'd have to play it again.
You'd have to play it again. And I will say, so I played this for a little while earlier in the week, and then I stopped.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll come back to it. And then I was like, maybe I'll come back to it if Shane makes me play it. And then, like, when you ask, like, what did you... I'm like, I played Vampire, but probably not enough to talk about it. I could probably go back to it. And you're like, why don't you do that? And I'm like, yeah, okay. And when I loaded it up, after about 10 minutes, it crashed. And I had to load it up again. And... it started from the beginning, and I couldn't skip anything.
Gone.
So there was no save. There was
no save.
Because I hadn't finished the first full episode,
so
I had to play the whole thing again. And because it was all tutorial stuff, I couldn't skip anything. It's amazing.
What is the plot?
Look at that. Isn't that right, Zach? Like that's the guy from Deadly Premonition. He grew a beard. Also, this woman, his like Zhu Feng, her lipstick pops in all the time. There's tons of detail pop in on this game that I do not understand. Like. It looks terrible. The animation on the characters in this game would be embarrassing on the 360.
Yeah.
And like MM, like one of the other characters. So Caleb is one of the three characters you play. You switch between. It's Caleb, who's like a Ventru, or like aristocratic vampires. And
rich vampires.
Pretty much. They're snobs, basically. Snob vampires. Society vampires. And then MM is the girl in the elevator you saw. She's a toreador who are artists, and she runs nightclubs and burlesque clubs and stuff. She has gold, like I don't know if they're tattoos or like embedded, but they're in her skin and on her arms, and that gold changes shape about 5 times a scene. Like it just like there's times when it cuts back to a character that was just on screen 5 seconds ago. Like right here, watch Zhu Feng's lips. I bet it'll do it when it cuts back to her. Oh, it didn't.
No.
That's MM. But that gold on her, like that changes shape all the time. And then then the third character is Leisha, who is a Malkavian, who are all the Malkavians are crazy. They all have a derangement, and hers seems to be premonitions. And she has like a child vampire, like a 5-year-old vampire whose voice actress talks with a a pronounced and apparent, I think, intentional lisp, and it drives me out of my mind. Like it's like some of the voice acting in this game is just difficult.
But this is all story driven. So how's the story? I mean, that's what's most important.
I mean, I hope you're interested in vampire politics, because that's all it is.
It's a detective mystery, though. What are they trying to figure out?
Basically, like there's supposed to be a big party. It takes place in Boston, and there's supposed to be a big party because the prince of the city, who's the vampire who leads a city, she has finally negotiated a truce or a deal with a coterie of mages who are from another RPG in the World of Darkness. Basically what would happen there is that because the mages need blood for rituals, they would get it from the vampires. It would give the vampires control of like the underworld blood market.
Okay.
Which is a thing, apparently. So we're going to have this big party celebrating this with all these VIPs there. And something happened. Like the beginning of the game, you're called into that's the prince, the woman with the white hair. You're called in on a code red, which is the name of the thing of vampire is the Vampire the Masquerade. And the Masquerade is the front that you can't not allowed to let the world at large know that vampires exist. And if you break the Masquerade, it can be like grounds for death, basically. Big taboo. Don't do that. And apparently there was a breach at the site of the party before everybody got there, and something happened, and they don't know who's dead and who isn't, or what happened, if the deal's off, like what's going on. And so one of the things, so MM is trying to help her friend who was the planner of the party and thinks she might be made the scapegoat for what happened. Leisha is working for the prince and is trying to being sent basically to investigate this stuff, and is having premonitions about what might happen as a result of everything and trying to make sense of that. And Caleb, I think, so far is just sort of like trying to figure out what's going on so he can use it to his advantage.
Okay.
He's more of the Ventura climbers. So that's more or less what's happening. So you're trying to figure out who sabotaged things and who stole stuff, and so far MM stuff seems to be more investigative snooping, and Leisha as well, because Leisha can turn invisible, so she can like eavesdrop on things, and Caleb is more like intimidating and convincing people of things. Like
okay.
But it's all talking. It's all talking and looking. Like there's no combat so far. And even like you're seeing here is how you suck blood from people. Is you find a secluded place, and then you go basically hold a button and tell them to come where you are, and then you suck blood from them. And there's a very confusing mini game where you're supposed to. I mean, the tutorial on mine literally said to press the button.
The button.
Not which button to press, but the button, which turned out to be the right trigger. Because the first time I actually killed her. Because if you don't...
You drank too much.
No, because if you don't press the button, you kill them.
The button.
If you do hold the button, you have to... So here it is. Yeah, I don't see where it says what button to press. Although there's a tripod in the way. But, like, you're supposed to hold the button down. I guess it says F, but that's not... I didn't see that on mine. And... You hold it down, and like their blood meter goes down, and your hunger meter goes down, and if you don't release it in time, they die. And if you do release it in time, basically you want to hold it as long as you can. There you go. And so you got a pretty good amount out of that. And if you hold it too long, they die. And if you kill too many people, like your suspicion meter goes up, and you get in trouble. Basically.
Seems like it shouldn't be that complicated.
It shouldn't be. Also, it's their wrist. People don't bleed out that fast.
Yeah.
But it's just an example of how poorly explained all this is.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you've got, like, you can see in the corner, that's your willpower is the blue, and the purple is hunger. So the higher hunger goes over time, it basically changes your stats. So if like you have lower hunger, you're more composed. So you got like a 10% bonus to like I think persuasion or something. And and minus 10 to intimidation. And as you get more hungry, the beast starts to come out. So you are less persuasive. But then you get more intimidating. And I think at some point, I think I haven't had this happen, but I think if you let hunger get too high, you can actually go into a frenzy and like ruin everything, or like just kill somebody you probably don't want to kill or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it really changes much, but like it's there. They talk about it. I haven't seen any actual evidence of it happening.
No, if you can get past like all the technical issues in this, is this a good game to play for people who like stuff like Telltale and Don't Nod?
I mean, I wouldn't say.
Or is this the bottom of the barrel for those?
If you don't already, I think if you don't already have a familiarity with Vampire the Masquerade, you are not going to get anything out of this. Like
okay.
Because this game really assumes you know what this stuff is. There's a very extensive glossary and like kind of where you can look up what all the terms mean and who the characters are, but like. If you don't already know who the clans are, what the basic stuff is, what all these things, all these terms mean, like you're going to be stuck looking stuff up all the time, or you're just not going to care.
Yeah.
And I don't.
It's hard to get past the presentation.
It's very hard to get past all the dead face. I mean, I know they're vampires, but they're not supposed to be that dead faced, And it just feels archaic. Like, I mean, there is probably a decent. If you had animation, at least on the level of like Mass Effect 2, in terms of how the conversations go, you might have something here, but as it stands, it's just sort of I just everything moves so slow and everything is just so stiff. And the other thing is like, I'm sure this is a side effect of COVID, but like the audio quality of the voice recordings varies by line at times.
Which is huge for a game like this,
and like,
where the story is the whole game.
So this character, this is the prince. So her lines in like a scene like this will be kind of in the same vein of all the other characters talking in the scene. But when you get into a conversation with her, her voice quality changes. Like it's very clearly recorded in a different location.
At home in her closet, probably.
Yeah, it sounds like home recording, and maybe the best they could do. But it's like, and like it's clearly some rewrites and some re-recordings happened, and you can tell every single time when the re-recordings happened. There's no consistency to the voice quality.
Cinetike is asking, did you play The Council? It's from the same developer, and I found that one very interesting. How does it compare?
I did not play The Council, but I know it's the same people. So I don't know.
Okay.
This, from what I understand, is more based around sort of the skill mechanics, whereas The Council seemed to be more of like a visual novel kind of thing.
How much is this game at?
Full price. $60.
Are you kidding me?
And in fact, they sell a $70 special edition with extra outfits.
Oh my god! Yeah. $60 for this? They're trying to get full price?
Yeah, it's a full price game.
Oh my god!
It's not even on Game Pass.
Wow! Oh my god, this may be the biggest avoid in the history of GameFace.
It's up there.
Dude, are you kidding me?
I mean, Balan Wonderworld was probably more of an avoid.
Would you rather play this or Balan Wonderworld? You'd rather play this?
Yeah, because at least there's a story here.
Oh my god!
Like I appreciate what they're after here, even if they don't get there. Balan Wonderworld is just trash.
Yeah. I mean, as someone who doesn't know that much about the World of Darkness, I mean, this game looks like trash to me.
You would have nothing. You get nothing out of this.
I there's no way I was playing this game. I investigated it. I was very happy to find out that you were playing it.
Well, that makes one of us.
So that's a huge pass.
Yeah, do not.
Like, even if you're a huge World of Darkness person, it's a huge pass.
No. I mean, no.
Yeah. Wow. Full price. I thought you were going to say like $15.
No. This is a $60 game.
I thought it was $15.
And honestly, it doesn't even seem that long to me. Like, I feel like
were things winding down already?
No,
after a couple
they're not winding
hours?
down, but I can kind of, I have a sense for story structure, and I feel like I'm already hitting kind of the midpoint, even after a couple hours, and like.
Oh boy!
I mean, it feels longer than that. And I looked up some reactions online and stuff, and like some people were basically who already finished it are basically saying like, the systems are cool, but the game's not long enough to like let them develop to any point. And I guess you're supposed to go back kind of like heavy or like like the Quantic Dream games where you can go back and like pick up stuff in the different parts of a different character and like replay them and choose different things. And I think when you go back to do that in this game, you have the upgrades you got over the course of the game. So like the first conversation you have with you have a dialogue option with a skill that you don't have yet, and I think you can go back and do that with that skill and kind of like play a perfect run sort of thing. I can't imagine wanting to do that, but like,
boy, they really overshot their interest in this game. That is insane, man. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, the Council sounds a lot more interesting than this.
Yeah.
About historical character. I mean, it sounds like Assassin's Creed
says
with
the Council
vampires.
was about historical characters like Napoleon and George Washington, the occult, a secret society meeting, and uncovering the mysteries of managing relationships with the other characters. Story was fictional, of course. Yep, we got that. So this is a big avoid. I mean, this month was so bad. This was in Dossier this month. It's, 10 games worth buying this month.
Yeah. Like, if you're into Vampire, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, we're going to still just hope that Bloodlines 2 is going to exist one day.
Yeah.
Weird to think. I mean, Ubisoft put out a thing asking for a lead gameplay animator for Beyond Good and Evil 2 today. Which, A, means I guess it's still alive.
It's not dead.
And B, it's way out.
Which is insane.
If they don't have a gameplay animator, like, I guess the guy left.
I mean, didn't Michel Ancel leave?
Yeah.
I mean, so his underlings are just going to finish it up?
If he was ever there to begin with, who knows what's happened with that game.
He was there for their streams, but who knows? He may have just left and didn't come back. So, anyway, there you go. Vampire the Masquerade Swansong. Stay far away.
Vincent says the console's under $5 right now on PSN, so that's probably if you desperately want to play a vampire thing, there you go.
And it's just as good as this, probably.
Yeah.
All right, let's move along. We're going to talk next about PlayStation Plus, because it has now, the upgraded version of PlayStation Plus has now launched as of today in some territories. And leading up to it, some people had early access to the new PlayStation Plus, and basically all the information about it has leaked out. And for us, the new PlayStation Plus doesn't launch until June 13th, so we still have like 3 weeks or whatever. But what is launched in essentially Central Asia at this point is a pretty good kind of signpost to let us know what we're going to get here in America. Let's see. First of all, the big thing that people are complaining about is that some first-party games have started appearing in those new territories, and now, obviously, it's live. And the versions that are appearing are the PAL European versions, which run slower at 25 frames per second instead of 30 frames per second.
You fucking amateurs.
This was also a problem on the PlayStation Classic, if you remember.
Yep.
It was an issue with some of the versions on that, and apparently Sony is just more than happy to continue regurgitating those poor versions of games for a worldwide audience. I don't know what it is thinking. It's crazy, in all honesty, that this is what would happen, but it is happening. 50 hertz PAL versions have made it onto the service, and that even happened in some NTSC markets as North America with the PlayStation Classic. Let's see, the lineup of games. How do you feel about that, Matt? Why is PlayStation doing this? After the uproar over some of those games on the PlayStation Classic.
They don't know.
They don't know?
I would imagine they don't. They either don't know or don't care.
Is that a really terrible harbinger of things to come for this service, though?
Well, the thing is, like, none of it matters. Because no one's getting this service to play Wild Arms. You know, like,
You don't think any of the retro stuff even matters?
I don't think, though. I think this is all afterthought. And, like, I think it's only on there because they already had those versions from the PlayStation Classic.
Uh-huh.
That's all it is. They're just taking the thing from the PlayStation Classic and slapping it on here, and that's the end of it. They put some trophies on them. That's about it. Very lazy, but what are you going to do? You know, like, they're not throwing that kind of money at this to, like, redevelop any of these things. I mean, it's ridiculous, but, like, what are you going to do? I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to emulate them.
Well,
I'm going to go take Wild Arms out off my shelf, slap it in my PC, and play it on RetroArch or whatever, and it's going to run great.
Yeah. The first-party games that are from the PAL region that run at 25 frames per second include Everybody's Golf, Wild Arms, Jumping Flash, and Karushi. That's
a problem for a Jumping Flash.
Uh-huh. The third-party games on the service, such as Tekken 2, Siphon Filter, Abe's Odyssey, and Mr. Driller, those are based on the NTSC versions.
Interesting.
That run at 30 frames per second, which is really strange. Also, pretty much the whole lineup was announced, or released, honestly, because, again, it's available in some territories. I did a quick kind of count of the games. There's close to 300 games total for PS4 and PS5. There's 15 to 20 game trials available. We talked about that a couple weeks ago on GameFace, how Sony was forcing studios to do that, although you do have a window of like 3 months from when you release your game to get the game trial up. But there's only 15 or 20 at launch. So obviously, most publishers at this point have not been proactive in trying to get those ready. The Classics catalog, which is PS1 to PS3, there are just 17 games before you get to the PS4. So games all told, PS1 through PS3, just 17 games. Of those, there's 1 PSP game, 4 PS2 games, and 12 PS1 games.
All right.
That seems really anemic to me.
Yeah.
The vast majority of games, and I will say this. So when you look at Game Pass, whatever the number of available games is at any given time, generally 60 to 70% of those games are indie games. Games that where people had bought them, they would have paid $10 to $30 for. Most of the games that are on the PlayStation Plus, the new PlayStation Plus service, are big budget games. And I don't know what kind of coin Sony is paying for that stuff, but generally the percentage of games that are interesting on PlayStation Plus, at least to me, that quotient is higher on PlayStation Plus than it is on Game Pass. I would also argue, though, that even though there are more indie games on Game Pass, there seem to be more recent games on Game Pass, albeit a lot of those games are indie games and aren't big budget games. So I would argue the retro stuff on the new PlayStation Plus is looking pretty bad, both in quality and quantity. However, the PS4, PS5 library, I would argue, is probably better than what you're getting on Game Pass if you're just looking to play Xbox One and Xbox Series games on Game Pass. How do you feel about those two options, Matt? Which one sounds more inviting and interesting to you?
I don't.
Neither, I'm sure, is really your answer, but
I don't.
If you had to pay for one, which one seems like the one you would want to pay for?
I don't know. I don't see a world where I don't have the big budget things that are offered here already. I don't know. I don't understand why I want PlayStation on this. I mean, I don't know. I am never going to want to wait around for God of War or Spider-Man or any of these things to finally show up on this service before I play them.
So, I mean, they're all there. That's the other thing too.
But they are not going to be there
day one,
and I'm already going to be at these games day one. There's no value for me there.
Well, I mean, what we're seeing is that there are no big first-party exclusives for Microsoft. So that's, we always thought that was a big competitive advantage. As it turns out, it's really not so much anymore, though.
Well, it will be once Microsoft starts getting stuff out the door. But for now, who cares?
Yeah. Is that the problem? Is it that nobody cares? Also, here's another thing that happened this week, Matt. So I don't know if you remember, but I mentioned last week that I was thinking about canceling my Game Pass subscription. And because I just wasn't getting any value out of it anymore. And it became a thing this week. There was some journalist who wrote an editorial or something saying that he was going to cancel his Game Pass subscription. And people freaked out and jumped all over him and blah. So it kind of became a thing this week that now other people are also in the same boat I'm in, where they're like, wait a minute, I'm not playing anything on this service anymore, and there aren't any big games coming for a while. Is it worth subscribing to anymore? And to your point, you're not interested in subscribing to either right now, it doesn't sound like.
No, I mean, I've already got, I subscribed in, bulk to Game Pass already, so it's not like it's worth canceling.
Yeah.
I did the deal where you get, everything for, $1 a month for a certain amount of time
right,
or whatever.
Right.
So it's not worth canceling, but it's not I haven't used it for anything, really, recently.
I played Trek to Yomi, but it was bad.
Yeah, I did get that. I didn't actually open it.
I played it for an hour and a half, and it's a bad game. I probably still should have brought it on the show because we have nothing to talk about. I just couldn't bring myself to play enough of it to feel like I would be fair talking about it on the show, other than to say I didn't like it enough to play enough of it to be able to talk about it on the show. That probably says a lot all on its own. And then the final thing that we learned about PlayStation Plus, the new PlayStation Plus this week, is that old PlayStation games are getting trophies. Siphon Filter is the first game that it was discovered on, but it appears as of right now, Siphon Filter is the only game confirmed that will have that capability.
No, Wild Arms does.
Wild Arms has it too. They confirmed that too.
I saw a list earlier this morning. It was that was Siphon Filter, Wild Arms,
first party stuff.
I want to say Jumping Flash.
Well, they did clarify today in a news story that it appears that only games that were published by Sony are guaranteed to have trophies. For everybody else, it's optional, which means they're not going to do it. Who is going to go back and add trophies to a game from, like, 1998? Because I have a feeling it doesn't really matter how much people play these games as far as what these publishers are getting paid to include their games in the service. I don't feel like they're incentivized to make people play them.
No, although that's a pretty easy thing.
Adding trophies is, you think?
Yeah, it's just an overlay thing. If it was...
Don't you have to have triggers in the game to trigger to PlayStation Plus that you've accomplished what you need to accomplish?
I think PlayStation Plus has tools that do that already. Like, it recognizes it already. It's not an intrusive thing to the old game code. But I don't know. I mean, if you know the game well enough, that'd be a fun thing to throw. Or just trolling people. Like,
look, there's some people that play games just for trophies.
Yeah. I mean, if I was doing something, I'd be just like, okay, you get a platinum trophy for finishing the game without dying. Fuck you. Like,
yeah.
I just be mean about it.
Right.
Know? I just go after the retro people. I don't know.
Shinky says, people like trophies. RetroArch has trophies on old games.
That's true, yeah.
I have gotten over the whole thing. Like, the achievements, the trophy, I do not care at all anymore about any of it. Like, it was cool to me during the 360 era.
Like, I do it sometimes. Actually, I do it to get a platinum sometimes on things, but, like, only if I care about the game. But,
I know I'm not getting a platinum, so it doesn't even enter my mind.
But part of the problem is, like, it's impossible to see anyone's trophy. Like, I used to be interested to compare achievements and trophies to people, and it's like, oh, they did this or they did that, and I didn't get that yet. But now, like, you got to go so far in. They used to be like 2 button presses.
Yeah.
And now it's like you got to go digging for it, and it's just like, I don't care. I don't care that much. And so, like, yeah, I haven't really thought about it in forever.
I have to keep all that stuff turned off on my consoles because I play pre-release games, and they don't. People will go and look at your profile to see trophies, and so
the most I get is like when a rare achievement pops up on Xbox or a trophy pops up, a rare trophy, I'm like, oh, that's interesting that not many people have that.
Yeah.
There are a couple things that I'm interested in. I'm always interested in how, almost every trophy and achievement from like DLC is always like ultra rare.
Right.
It's just like,
because people once they finish the game, they're done. They don't go back
to it.
Yeah.
But like, it's also like that indicates, being ultra rare doesn't just indicate that not a lot of people got the DLC. It indicates that a lot of people got the DLC and didn't play it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's 1.1% or whatever out of how many people have played
the game, or how many people played the base game.
That's a good question.
Probably would be my guess.
Maybe.
Yeah. So, how do you feel about all this stuff, Matt? It doesn't sound like it really moves the needle for you in any way.
Feelings. I have no reaction to this whatsoever. Like, I don't care. Like, it's not going to be a retro service worth anything. Otherwise, it's just not going to change. I'm going to keep it at the basic. It's going to keep giving me access to PlayStation, online play, and that's that. Like, This is a complete non-event to me. Like, I don't care about any of what they're doing here.
You're not going to be waiting with bated breath on June 13th, Matt?
No. In fact, you're gonna have to tell me again when it happens because I'm not gonna remember.
Yeah.
Because is that Tuesday? Is it Tuesday?
The 13th is still a ways away.
That's a Wednesday.
I have no idea.
Is it?
It's still like 3 weeks away.
10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. The 13th is a Monday. Okay. So yeah.
Starting the week off with I'll be honest with you. I feel the same way.
It's like a week, 2.5 weeks.
Although I will say this: at first, when we heard about this new PlayStation Plus, I thought it had no chance to compete with Game Pass. But now I'm not so sure about that. I still wonder what the audience is for this stuff, if there is an audience for this stuff at all. But I'm not it. You're not it. Doesn't sound like most of the people who watch GameFace or use Sifted are all that excited about it. But I will say this: it's starting to make more sense now than it did. As far as like what they're offering for the price, it seems a little more competitive now than it was. Mostly because Microsoft is unable to deliver on the promise of its first-party games coming day and date to Game Pass because there aren't any. Mm-hmm. And there aren't going to be any probably for a good 8 or 9 months. So Sony definitely chose a pretty good window to launch this. I have a feeling a lot of people will try game streaming for the first time if they get the premium version of this, the premium tier where they get the PlayStation Now stuff. But generally, I think for people like us, this stuff's kind of dead in the water right now because there just aren't game releases on Game Pass, and PlayStation never promised day one. I feel like if God of War, we knew it was coming this year, and we knew it was going to be day one on PlayStation Plus, this might have a little more cachet to it.
Yeah, but it's not.
It's not, and it probably never will. So,
like, there were people wondering if they'll put the Last of Us remake up day and date on, like, PC, and I'm just like, no, probably not.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Sony's ever doing that.
No, I don't either. What, like, releasing on PC the same day as PlayStation? Yeah. No, hell no. No, there's no way.
They didn't even do that with the Uncharted Legacy thing.
No.
Like, there's no way.
It's not happening. Yep. So anyway, that's it. I think that's the final details on PlayStation Plus. It's all out there on the table. I do hope that PlayStation listens to fan complaints about the PAL versions of its games being released in non-PAL territories. That is idiotic.
It's dumb.
That just shows that you're not listening to fans at all. And maybe they'll rectify that. Maybe all the first-party stuff, at least, from here forward, will be the NTSC versions that run at 30. But it's coming. You can't stop it. It's already out there in some parts of Asia. And it does launch in Japan, I think on like June 1st or 3rd or something like that. For whatever reason, North America and Europe, we're getting the new PlayStation Plus last out of everyone in the world, which doesn't happen that often anymore. So, all right, there you go.
You know we're going to complain the most.
You're probably right. But it doesn't matter. Like, everything's global now. Like, news spreads so fast. It's like you can't hide things in territories anymore like you used to be able to. It just doesn't work. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about a game that Matt was playing last week, and I did not include it in the show last week because 300 was already jam-packed with all the other special stuff we were doing. And then as I was leaving after we recorded the show and streamed the show, I asked Matt for like more information on the game that he was playing, and he started telling me about it, and I was like, that is insane. We need to talk about it next week on GameFace. And so here we are. The game is called Ravenous Devils. It is a point-and-click game, but its content certainly strays outside the normal boundaries of that genre. Matt, what is the synopsis of this game?
So you play a husband and wife who open a combination restaurant and tailor shop in Victorian London. But the trick is that they're serial killers. And so the guy kills some of his tailor customers and drops them down a dumbwaiter to the basement where the wife grinds them up in a giant meat grinder and makes the food out of them. And so the gameplay is you have to sort of constantly balance taking people's measurements, making clothes, putting clothes out for people to buy, and killing them and cleaning up the blood before the other customers come in, and then making the food out of them to bring up to the restaurant to feed people before they get too impatient.
Yeah.
And as you go, you like upgrade, so you have more mannequins to put clothes on and more space to put pies out, and like you can hire a waiter to help you, and you can like get new recipes and like multiple ovens and multiple tables, and so basically you escalate and escalate and escalate, and eventually get a greenhouse where so the tailor can, instead of just dropping the bodies down the chute, can take a body upstairs and marinate it in the bathtub to make fertilizer to grow tomatoes, so you can make new recipes. And it's all very
gosh.
And it's all very potboiler Victorian pulp, gothic horror stuff. And both of them are very, very proper sort of. So it's like, oh, just delicious today.
I mean, just look at that still.
Delicious meat pies today, but it's like all that. And there's like there's someone who starts sending them letters early on who like knows who they are and is excited they're there because they also like to eat human flesh, and they're like saying like, oh, I sent this person over to see you, and I want you to kill them and store them until I can come over and eat them.
Oh my gosh!
So like you have objectives you have to accomplish, like special characters come in and there's cutscenes where they deal with them and stuff, and as you upgrade your shops, it gets bigger and bigger. So it's basically like you're just spinning all these plates. The one thing I will say is I don't think you can actually fail. Like I left, there's an indication here where like, because you see that room there on the right is where you kill people and dump them down, and then you have to mop the blood up. But like, I don't
this
think
game is insane.
I don't think anyone ever actually will come in and discover the blood. I think it's just all about how much money you make per day, and the less money you make, if you're less efficient, it'll take you longer to upgrade and longer to get to the story. I think that's all. Because it's actually a little bit like those like Cook Serve Delicious, like the diner games.
Because
like You basically have to do everything on a timer, and like customers come in and they have to have, if you don't serve them in time, they get upset and leave or whatever. And at the end of the day, you get rated on how many happy customers you were, and you get a certain amount of money. You use that money to buy upgrades. Right? So it's like that.
Do your customers ever get sick from eating human flesh?
No, they're all just fine. I mean, honestly, that's probably the freshest meat those people have. I mean, it's Victorian times. There wasn't a lot of refrigeration. It's probably the freshest meat they've had all day.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about a time when they, do you know how they figured out how cholera is spread?
No.
They thought it was like miasma or like sin or whatever.
Yeah.
But one guy, Jon Snow, actually, his name was Jon Snow. He theorized it was in the water because cholera it comes from corpses or feces in the water. It's a waterborne disease.
Yeah.
And he theorized that it was because of the water pumps in the neighborhood, and they're like, it doesn't make any sense. It's not how it works. And it's like, but it is. Like, and so he went and he did his.
Oh my god! And just put that person in the grinder.
Yeah, and his study was to figure out about this water pump, and he suddenly figured out that the only people who didn't get sick worked at a beer brewery on the block. Because they were given free beer, so they wouldn't go out and waste time getting water. So they didn't. The only people who didn't get sick were the ones not drinking the water. So that's how he proved that's how that happened.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of sanitation you're talking about at this time. I think someone chopping up fresh meat and turning them into pies would have been probably an improvement. So yeah, that's basically the game. Like that's it. Like you're juggling all these things you have to do, and on a time limit on everything, and you're trying to like get everything served in a timely manner.
Wow, how hard is it? These games generally drive me bonkers.
As I said, I don't think you can fail.
Plate spinning.
I think the worst you can do is just like not make a lot of money in a day. If there's a fail state, I was not able to find it, even just not doing anything right.
You tried to fail and you were unable to?
Like no one would come in and discover the blood.
Huh.
So I don't know if that's just early on they don't do that, or at a certain point like you start getting investigated by the cops, but that hasn't happened yet.
Now, generally, point-and-click games are driven by the story. Now, obviously, the setup is incredibly unique, and it's intriguing, and has me wanting to play this game. But is it told well? Is it written well? Is there voice acting? It's well enough.
I mean, the appeal, I think, is more the game. Like, it's more the
concept.
It's more the franticness of trying to get everything to happen at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing. Like a Cook Serve Delicious or a all those cooking games that have sprung up.
Yeah.
Overcooked and all that kind of thing.
Not like Cooking Mama.
Yeah, and it's like the part of the thing is like, you have to jump up and down between the floors to get up to the tailors. So you're just sort of trying to juggle everything. That's all it is.
It's a multitasking game. It just happens to have a disgusting premise.
Yeah.
How does a story evolve? Like, what is the point of friction? Like, is there somebody who's going to come and inspect eventually?
They're just worried that people will discover, because whoever's writing them the letters knows what's happening.
Right. So they're afraid that person's going to show up and blow their cover.
Somewhat, but they also are just sort of like, well, we'll kill him eventually. Like it's sort of like a. Like so far, like the letter writer has been very insistent about early on about how I support what you're doing. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you managed to set fire to your last restaurant in the other town and got out, and everyone thinks you died because you dressed a couple of victims up in your clothes and left them to burn. So they were unrecognizable. They thought it was you. So
they figured him out at their last location that they were killing.
Yeah, whoever this is knows what's been going on for a while.
Gotcha.
But you don't know what they're building to there.
Well, back in these days, you could get away with that stuff because there was no internet, there was no telephones.
Right. And periodically, there's stuff where it's like, my father said he was coming here, and I don't know where he went. It's like, I don't know where he could be. But you want at one point you feed a child his own mother.
Oh gosh.
To make him feel better that he can't find his mother. So that's the kind of game we're dealing with. Here.
Have you enjoyed playing it?
Yeah, I like it. It's fun.
It's not overly cringy.
No, I mean I don't. I have a very high tolerance for this kind of like pulp gore.
Yeah, how you even describe something like this? Really, I don't even know.
And it's got that sort of like Victorian sort of like casualness about it. It's just like, horrible things are happening, but like it's just what we do.
Well, I mean, in Victorian age, that pretty much just happened every day.
And it was just sort of it's just sort of like, and you steal the victim's clothing to get the fabric to make your. So that's the thing is like all your resources come from the murder victims. So like you kill a guy and you take their clothes and that goes into your fabric resource and you dump them down the chute and you make clothes out of the fabric and put the fabric on the clothes on the mannequins and people come and buy the clothes and give you money. And then
the clothes of the dead people that you killed.
Well, no, you make new clothes out of the fabric you get.
Patchwork.
Yeah. You take that and you turn it into another work of art.
What else do you repurpose and or recycle from your victims? Anything else?
Them. Yeah.
So the meat and the clothes, and that's it. Clothes, yeah. You're not making like glue or anything.
Not so far. I mean, you do turn them into fertilizer and grow like vegetables with them.
And then you sell the vegetables as like the accoutrement to your.
Yeah, and you get different. I mean, you get different like tools. So eventually, you can turn them into steaks or sausages instead of just ground meat.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of balance like what you do with your resources there. Because when people come, when eventually you get tables and people will come in and order something specific. So early on, you're just putting food out on that desk there. Kind of
people just come and get it.
People come in and pick it up, and you get money. You don't even have to be there. It's self-serve basically. But eventually, you get customers coming in like a restaurant, and you have to like make the food they want in a certain time limit.
Got ya.
And like that's when you get into the thing where it's like, okay, you want multiple workbenches, so you can have multiple recipes going at one time. You want multiple ovens, so you can be cooking more than one thing at a time. And you have unlimited time at the beginning of the day to prep. So basically, you can load everything up in the store and then cook like you can guess like. So you have 5 recipes. I'm gonna cook 3 recipes and leave them all out on the workbenches and hope the first table wants one of those 3 things.
Right. Now you're not actually like cooking the stuff and like you have to add all the ingredients into a pan. Oh, you do. You still go through that whole process.
You have to walk over, get the meat from the grinder or wherever, and you put it on the workbench. And you go pick up the flour and put it on the workbench. You go if it involves it, you go get the tomatoes and put them on the workbench. And you pick that whole thing up and put it in the oven, and then you wait for the oven to cook. And then you pull it out of the oven, and you can either put it on the workbench to wait or bring it straight up. And then eventually you get to hire. There's actually it's an interesting. I'm curious how they'll continue to handle this. One of the noble people, the elite noble people that you kill early on has, I think, a servant, but it might be a slave. He might be a slave because the kid says he bought him.
Oh,
and so he gets told to wait outside, and then like you kill the guy, and he comes in looking for him. He's like, oh no, he just left. I'm sorry, you missed him. And he's like, oh, well, I don't know where he is, and without him, I don't have anything. And he's like, go downstairs and see if my wife needs some help. And so like you hire him as a waiter. So instead of her coming upstairs to put everything up there, now he's up there under strict orders to never come downstairs. And you send everything up a dumbwaiter, and he goes and takes orders and tells you what they need, and you send it up, and he goes and serves it.
Wow.
So it streamlines the process of going up and down the stairs a lot. But that's right when it expands out into like, oh, now there's a lot more demand. Like, and true enough. Running the restaurant is way harder than keeping the murder victims quiet. Like,
if they're victims, they can't talk.
Right. Well, but like this,
keeping the murders quiet.
I'm just saying, the husband upstairs murdering people has the easy job. Like serving all the food is way harder.
Is the hard part.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So here you see he kills her, and now he'll take her clothes, and
then he puts her,
toss them over there, and then dump her in the
hole. And then you mop up all the blood.
Yeah. And as far as I can tell, no one will come in that room until you've mopped the blood.
This is horrible. Wow.
So there's a kind of a Sweeney Todd vibe to it, I guess is what I'd describe it as.
Yeah. It's I'll say this, Matt, it's the most interesting point and click game I have seen in forever.
Yeah.
Like, I want to play it, and I cannot remember the last that's a traditional point and click too. Like, I can't remember the last game like that I've really, really wanted to play. It's available for pretty much everything. How much does it cost? Please don't tell me $60.
This is $5.
It's $5?
Yeah.
That's the deal of the century. That's amazing.
Not bad. It's definitely worth $5.
How long is the game? Do you know?
Certainly longer than $5.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've played like 2 hours of it. I feel like I'm, maybe halfway through it, story-wise.
Wow, what a good deal.
I'm sure you can just keep playing it.
Yeah. Just keep making more and more money.
Yeah.
Huh. Well,
there's a lot of upgrades. There's a long way to go.
Ravenous Devils. Why is it called that?
I think it's just like Ravenous Devils.
Eating,
Yeah, well, they're ravenous and they're devils because they're evil, but also it sounds like a very British insult.
It does, actually. But again, it's available for every platform. PC, all Xbox,
it's on everything.
All PlayStation, Switch.
I will say this plays way better with a mouse.
Oh, really?
Way better with a mouse. Like, I tried it with a controller, and I was like, I don't see what the mouse is like. Way better. Like, if you can play it on PC, play it on PC.
Or on Switch, maybe with the touchscreen.
Maybe. I don't know how well that would work. But all I know is, like, because, like, you saw in the footage, like, you're using this little cone of light to sort of, like, on that, you're just pointing and clicking, and also switching between the floors is just the mouse wheel, which is just, it's so much better.
Okay. So PC preferable
I
platform.
strongly recommend PC or anything you play with a mouse or a touch screen probably would be better.
Okay. So there you go. This Ravenous Devils. That's an enthusiastic thumbs up to spend $5 and yeah, in this drought.
Way better than Vampire.
Yeah, these droughts, those are the exact type of games we're looking for. Cheap and good. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next and lastly, for episode 301, about Silent Hill. We've hinted at some things about Silent Hill in the past here on GameFace.
This has been percolating for years.
We've even been privy to some insider information on some of this stuff, and now it's all starting to leak out. In the last week, 3 different Silent Hill projects have come to light, all from various reliable game leakers, so to speak. There are so many of those now.
Yeah.
Are you surprised how many people there are out there that we don't know that are privy to, like, crazy information anymore?
No, because there's thousands of people that work on these things.
But it's shocking to me how there are some people who nobody even knows who they are, who aren't just, like, getting leaks from, like, one thing. Some of them do. Like, they're just, like, they're a Capcom leaker or whatever. But a lot of them get leaks from everywhere. I'm like, where are these people working that they would get this information from? I almost feel like some of it's, like, working in-house first party, because you're somehow seeing, like, the stuff that's being submitted. I don't know. Like, I don't know how some of these people get this information. Unless they're journalists and that's their...
Most of them are journalists that just have a private email.
You think it's their burner account or whatever. Yeah, interesting. It'd be crazy.
I know this. Klepek has talked about how there's secure email servers and accounts you can get that, like, are guaranteed that no one will get into them, and you can have, like, anonymous sources send you things and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just wondering how there's one person who gets this from all these different people. And what are the incentives?
I imagine that it's just like, there's a grapevine for that kind of thing.
And what's the incentive for the people to give them the information? Like, it does them no good. Obviously, there's probably some people who are, like, disgruntled employees who have left and are like, oh, I got some dirt and I'm going to ruin the company that let go of me or whatever, that type of thing. But that's not all of it. Like, what incentive do these people have to leak stuff to these people? I mean, they're putting their job on the line for what? You think they're getting paid?
I think a lot of them left the job and are just saying, like, oh, this is happening.
So what I was saying, like, people who aren't working there anymore.
Yeah, I would think. Or some people are probably disgruntled or wanted more money or whatever.
Interesting.
Or some people might just be tired of working on a dead-end project and hope that if, like, the word gets out, it'll either force it to move forward or get canceled and they can move on.
That could be.
Sometimes, like, that seems to be like, the people are sending out stuff about, a distressed project or whatever. There was a leak like that this week about Starfield, but it didn't really seem very substantial. So who knows? Like, it's hard to separate the wheat from the chaff on some of this.
It is, for sure. All you can do is look at the history of the leaker, and if they've been right all the time, then you can kind of trust them. If they've been wrong, you can't.
Like, I'm sure that, like, these leakers have tons of stuff they don't publish because it all turns out to be nonsense or unverifiable.
Yeah. So. I'm not so sure that a lot of journalists who run these stories anymore are verifying
Maybe not. But sometimes, like, you can be like, oh, you hear something from somewhere, and then you can go to someone who, like, wouldn't leak something but is in a position to know things. And if you're like, what about this thing? And they'll do some, I certainly know a couple people that are like, you might. I know if it's not a thing, they'll say no, and if it is a thing, they'll be like, well, I don't want to comment on that. It's like they can say yes without saying yes.
I mean, I get information that way sometimes,
so I'm sure there's a lot of that going
on. So there are 3, according to these leakers, and some of them are very reliable, like Jeff Grubb from VentureBeat. According to these various leakers, there's a remake of Silent Hill 2 in development. That is according to Jeff Grubb. There's also a full sequel, like the next Silent Hill, that's in development, and most people believe that is under development at a prominent Japanese studio. And then there's a third story-focused episodic series that's also in development. Now, according to Jeff Grubb, again from VentureBeat, the remake of Silent Hill 2 will feature reworked AI, new animations, new puzzles, and several new endings. And he also claims that it will potentially be a timed exclusive on PlayStation consoles. Do you think that that's a good idea, Matt?
I don't think it really matters.
You don't think it matters at all?
No, I think this is all kind of a dead end.
What do you mean a dead end?
I don't think Silent Hill matters anymore.
Oh, you don't think Silent Hill as a property matters anymore?
I mean, obviously there's a very dedicated fan base, but I think that is under 1 million people, and it won't matter. I think you're talking about Evil Within numbers for this kind of thing, if you're lucky.
Really?
Yes. Driven by the fact that there hasn't been a good Silent Hill game since I was in my 20s.
2001 is when Silent Hill 2 was released.
Yeah, I would say Silent Hill 3.
It's 21 years old.
I would say Silent Hill 3 is the last good Silent Hill game.
The Room...
The Room was garbage.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even supposed to be a Silent Hill game. That's where it kind of fell off,
yeah.
And then everything else was just sort of like... Man, like I think Silent Hill 2 is one of the greatest games ever made, but I think the rest of the series I could take or leave it for the most part. 1, 2, and 3 are really good. Good to great, depending on which one you're talking about. And beyond that, it's just been trash.
Now, Jeff Grubb is reporting the Bloober team is working on the remake of Silent Hill 2. That is something that has been out there for a long time.
We've known they were doing something Silent Hill related.
Because the head of Bloober team...
I didn't realize how much vitriol there is around Bloober team. Like, people hate them.
Yeah, why is that?
I don't really know. I haven't watched the Jim Sterling video yet.
They seem like they're perfect for the project.
Maybe. I guess people didn't like a couple of the things they made. I thought Layers of Fear was pretty good.
Layers of Fear was good? Absolutely.
I didn't play Blair Witch. I don't know.
I played a little bit of it. It wasn't great. But Observer is really good.
Yeah, Observer was good.
But it's more cyberpunk.
Yeah, I don't know.
But all their games have, at the very least...
It's got to be better than the Silent Hill HD collection.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, all Bloober Team's games have a horror bent. So they are experienced with working with suspense. But if you're remaking a game... Does that stuff even matter? Obviously, I would assume they're ditching fixed camera perspective. That's going to go away.
Well, the Silent Hill 2 doesn't have fixed camera perspective.
Well, for indoor areas, it does. I thought
it moves.
I thought indoors.
3D. No, it's all 3D.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought for sure.
Silent Hill has always been 3D, all free camera.
Man.
I mean, you don't control the camera, but like it moves.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's a fixed camera. You can't move it yourself. Yeah. Indoors. I thought outdoors you could move it.
No, you can't move the camera in Silent Hill.
Outdoors you can't?
Nope.
Okay. But I know indoors for sure. It's the typical Resident Evil, like now the next camera is perched up in the corner of this room.
No, it's not because the camera moves. That was the difference between Resident Evil and this was the camera moves because the Resident Evil was pre-rendered backgrounds. That was why Silent Hill was better to me, was the camera actually moved around and you weren't stuck looking in weird, unnatural angles. The camera wasn't perfect, but it did try to show you what was happening from a fairly reasonable perspective.
I mean, there was some B-roll of Silent Hill 2 back here just a second ago that showed him walking through an indoor, and it's the same thing. It's Resident Evil. It just cuts all over the place as you make your way through, and you're like using tank controls and having to figure out. See?
Yeah, but it also moves. See, it moves.
Yeah, but Resident Evil does that.
Not the old ones.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, it pans, but it doesn't tilt like that. You can't tilt on a still image.
Oh, I didn't even notice it was doing that in the Silent Hill. I'm just saying it's cutting around, and it's a fixed camera, meaning that you have no control over it. You are playing around whatever camera angle that they give you.
That's not what I'd call a fixed camera, but okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
They're not going to get rid of that. That's Silent Hill.
Really? You think they'll keep that for a game that's going to release in 2023?
I think they might, yeah.
I don't. That would be stupid to do that. I mean, I get it. You don't want to go too far away from what people know Silent Hill for, but I just don't think most people are going to want to do that in 2023.
I would argue that is pretty essential to the identity of the series, at least in this era of the series. And if you change that, you're going to basically turn it into just another game. Which is fine.
Maybe that's the best idea.
I mean, part of the problem here, like this, like the fact that it can do this is dynamic in a way that Resident Evil was just not doing yet.
Yeah.
Following a character.
The camera never folled the character.
No, because you couldn't, because there was no environment. It was just pictures.
Yeah.
It was trash. But and there was a lot of. This is one of the first games that had like real influence of like Twin Peaks, David Lynch. Like there's Cronenberg, and like there was freshness to it. I don't know if you can really replicate that now, especially because Silent Hill 2 was tremendously influential, not necessarily in gameplay wise, but in terms of sort of like how you approach stuff. Like, I don't know, it feels like trying to show somebody Citizen Kane now.
EvuEN says that Bloober Team apparently steals games. I don't even know what that means.
I don't know what that means. I don't know. Steals games?
Yeah.
Like ideas?
I guess. I'm not sure. Maybe you can elaborate. Follow up with your first comment there. So I'm trying to figure out why people don't like them. I don't get it. Because they're a smaller developer, and like I don't expect their games to be, like Resident Evil 7 or Resident Evil Village or anything like that, because they just don't have the teams or the budget to do something like that. So my expectations maybe are set a little more realistically.
Yeah, Code Veronica was the first Resident Evil game with a 3D environment that could move the camera like this. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a remake is coming anytime soon, because that game is awful.
Yeah. More details on the Silent Hill 2 remake. Akira Yamaoka, he actually has worked with Bloober Team before on the Medium. He has already teased that his next game project was, quote, the one you've been hoping to hear about, unquote. So pretty sure that that's Silent Hill. And again, since he already has that relationship with Bloober Team, he's probably working on the Silent Hill 2 remake with them. And then the other smaller episodic series is supposed to be kind of short stories. Mm-hmm. And apparently this was something that Konami pitched to the team at Supermassive, or maybe Supermassive, maybe it's the reverse. Supermassive pitched it to Konami.
Yeah, I can't imagine Konami's going around pitching it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's reverse. Supermassive pitched it to Konami, and Konami said no, and then Supermassive was like, well, screw you, and it turned it into the Dark Pictures franchise, which is an anthology franchise.
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah.
I've always believed, back when this Silent Hill 2 came, because Silent Hill 2 has nothing to do with Silent Hill 1.
Yeah.
Outside of being set in Silent Hill.
Yep.
And then Silent Hill 3 went back to the Harry story. And I always thought that was a mistake. I thought Silent Hill was a more interesting idea as an anthology. I thought it was going to be more interesting as like seeing how different people react and how different people respond to this town that dredges up your worst fears and your worst nightmares. This like the idea of Silent Hill being the main character of the series basically, and bringing in different people to sort of
experience that,
and like I sort of go through things. Like Silent Hill sort of draws people to it.
Yep.
And so you get a different kind of angle every time. And a couple of the games sort of did that. Like Downpour kind of had that. Homecoming sort of did that. But like there was no, like, there wasn't really any kind of verve to it. Like they didn't have a good reason for it. So I thought that would be more interesting. Would be like to approach it the way Silent Hill 2 did, and then 3 went back to the old. I don't find the there's a cult in the town story from 1 and 3 to be particularally compelling.
Yeah.
I think this one is way more interesting because it's more of a psychological thing.
This is the best Silent Hill.
Oh,
Silent Hill 2. Easily.
I would say it's still one of the best horror games ever made.
Yeah.
Obviously,
they picked the right one to remake.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's showing its age, obviously. Yeah. But like...
it's from 2001. It's 21 years old now. It's crazy.
The first game dev interviews I ever did were for this game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you've mentioned that before, actually. And then the third game, which is the brand new game, VGC is reporting, and it says it has been told that Konami is planning to release a new mainline entry in the Silent Hill series, but it's not clear who is actually leading the project. VGC reported last year that a Japanese studio is working on a Silent Hill project. That's where we got a lot of that information from. And then there were some images leaked in the last week, and I didn't bother grabbing them because they're really just crap. Honestly, did you see them?
No.
They're more like concept art. They're really not like in-game images, and they didn't really show or give up anything, so I didn't bring them in and include them in the media for 301. But the images leaked last week are understood to be related to a PT-style teaser game codenamed Sakura, which is intended to be released as a free digital title to build anticipation for the larger project. So the leaked stuff that came out this week actually wasn't even from the next big Silent Hill release. It's some little spin-off thing, kind of what they did with Ayuden Chronicle that we talked about last week on the show. So with all that in mind, none of that excites you?
No.
Really?
I'm
not even the remake of Silent Hill 2.
I've already been burned by the HD remaster, so no, I'm going to need to see what they're doing first. There's nothing here. Like, this is just, okay, they're doing a thing, great. Maybe they won't even finish it. Who knows? Like,
Bloober Team's going to finish that game. They've been working on it for a while.
But we'll see what it turns out to be. Like, I don't care about if I want to play Silent Hill 2, I will just put the old game in the PS3.
Really?
Play that.
Wouldn't you prefer to play a new, improved version?
I bet I wouldn't.
Really?
I bet I wouldn't.
You think you'll end up liking the old one better?
I think a lot of this game is just nostalgia. It's of a time. I don't know if you can really translate this again. I don't know if you can really capture lightning in a bottle again with this. Certainly, they've struggled to do it with any other Silent Hill game ever. So I like Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3 quite a bit, but especially 2. But it's okay to let things go. It's okay.
Nobody wants to do that anymore.
It's okay to just leave them in the past and come back to them once in a while. Not everything needs to be remade. Not everything, And I have no faith in Konami to do any of it right. And
it's risk, though, Matt. They're trying to avoid risk. And to them, a game.
I feel like there are very few things riskier than trying to do Silent Hill again.
But if you own Silent Hill and you're trying to figure out how to keep it relevant and keep doing it, and you happen upon this podcast called GameFace. And there's this guy, Matt Kyle, that you remember from 2004 when he came and interviewed you with Adam Sessler or whatever. And he's sitting there and he's saying, Silent Hill 2 is my favorite. And you're like, that's the one we're remaking. Like, I don't know. It seems to me like they're doing it right.
I mean, if you absolutely have to do it, I guess. But, like, you're going to need to show me way more than a little leak in the news to get me excited about that. There have been more terrible Silent Hill games than good ones.
Oh yeah, I'm not denying that at all.
We know for certain that you can screw up a remake. There's nothing stopping you from making a bad version of a good game.
Yeah, and what we're seeing right now is a Silent Hill Downpour, which is a game that most people point to as like the only decent kind of recent Silent Hill game.
I guess,
and even that isn't.
It's not good.
It's not good. Yeah.
I mean, some people like that horrible Wii one. Shattered Memories or whatever it was, which was like a weird remake of the first game.
Right. Yeah.
I hated that game.
I didn't like it either, actually.
And like I gave it like a 2 out of 5 or something, and people lost their minds.
Because it was just Silent Hill. You can't give a Silent Hill game a 2 out of 5, Matt.
Well, then you could, but everybody thought it was like finally a good Silent Hill game. I'm like, there's people that still think that's the greatest game in the series. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell you're on, but it's terrible.
Eric Cartmenez is asking, should they just reboot the franchise?
No, they should just never touch it again. Like, it's over. It's fucking over.
But it is a unique concept. Like, even horror movies other than Silent Hill movies.
It's not a unique concept. It's just Jacob's Ladder. Like, it's
I don't remember Jacob's Ladder. I mean, I know I watched it back in the day, but I don't remember what the plot was.
It's a Vietnam vet who's having weird monsters and flashbacks of a dark world. And then at the end, it turns out that he's dying in Vietnam. And it's all just hallucinations.
It's just a flash. But this is about a town that possesses people, basically.
I'm just saying, Jacob's Ladder is what inspired Silent Hill. Like that's literally what they say gave them the idea to make Silent Hill.
This concept hasn't been like overdone, is what I'm saying. Like there's no other games that have a town as like the main character in the game, and everyone else is kind of just swapped in and out. It's the town that stays the same.
Well, neither are most of the games either. Like
I mean, maybe they don't do it because it's not a great concept. I don't know, but.
I mean, there's something there, but it's like they've never done anything with it.
Yeah.
Beyond 2. I mean, 2 is the closest they got to really taking advantage of that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited for it. Silent Hill 2, I'm like you. Silent Hill 2, one of my favorite horror games of all time. However, I'm not quite as nostalgic as far as wanting to go back and play it again now. I tried it 5-6 years ago, maybe, and I couldn't get that far into it. It just was so clunky and like. It's one of the few games I think that I did play backwards compatible on my PS3 Fat. Silent Hill 2. There weren't many that I used that functionality for. So I am excited for this. And I am excited for Bloober Team to be, I think they're the perfect partner. If you can't get like Capcom's RE team to do it, like it's hard for me to think of another team that would be better at it. So I'm pretty hyped for that. Do I have faith that the new game will be something worth anything? No, because if Konami's heading up that project, it probably will be an unmitigated disaster. But remaking the second game, that seems like a good idea to me with the team that they have involved with it.
I mean, if you have to go back to this well, I guess that's the closest thing you can get to a good idea. But like...
The episodic stuff... Like,
I have lived without Silent Hill for almost 20 years now, and I am fine continuing to do so.
Yeah, I understand that perspective. But I also understand the perspective of the publishers, how petrified they are to take risks anymore.
Yeah, I mean, but Konami doesn't even need to do anything.
It doesn't, because it doesn't care about that space anymore at all.
It's making more money than it ever has.
Yeah, so. It's so weird. It really is bizarre. I guess it just shows you how much money they were losing on a lot of their projects back in the day.
I mean, it definitely seems like they made the right call doing what they did, even if we don't like it.
It's hard to begrudge them. because ultimately they're making more money now, and their stockholders are definitely a lot happier than they were.
Although on the flip side, if they continue doing it, they probably would have been bought by now. We might be getting games made by better things.
That's a good point, because you're right. Like, as an acquisition target, Konami is not desirable.
Not desirable.
You just want the IP.
Yeah. Like, it's just a shame they've got, Metal Gear and Silent Hill and Castlevania locked up in there, and they're never going to do anything useful with it.
Yeah, it seems that way. But yeah, that's the latest on Silent Hill. 3 games coming. One is a remake of Silent Hill 2. One is a brand new game. What will that be? Will that be Silent Hill 5? I guess.
No, I mean, you're up to Silent Hill 7 or something
Would
at this
it be?
point. Well, you got Silent Hill 4 The Room, and then you got Downpour and Homecoming. And
do you think they'll count those as numeric?
I don't think they'll call it a number anyway.
Yeah.
But it would be like the 7th or 8th mainline
something like that
entry.
Yeah. So you have that, you have the remake, and then you have this episodic thing. That could work. Like the Dark Pictures. Have you played a lot of those? There's already, 3 of them or 2 of them?
I think the third one just came out a while ago.
Yeah. And they were pretty good, but obviously the studio that makes those turned down doing a Silent Hill type. So they decided to do it on their own. I don't know.
I can understand not wanting to get involved in that.
Yeah. David Cage might be a good... a good candidate for handling something like that. But anyway...
If you ever wanted a shower scene with the nurses, there you go.
That's good. So anyway, there's 3 projects coming. I don't think it'll be a while until we see any of these. I would guess we might see the Silent Hill 2 remake before the end of the year, of this year.
I mean, Bloober Team does seem to churn it out pretty fast.
It works fast. And the last game it released was just like a rework of Observer, right? For PS5 and Xbox Series. Yeah. So it hasn't really released anything for quite a while, so that window has been open. Hopefully we'll get a look at least at that before the end of 2022. And that's it for our topics for episode 301. We're going to get to some Q&A here in a minute, but first, here's a message from our sponsor. A once-in-a-lifetime property is now available in northwest Montana, featuring 92 acres of gorgeous wilderness, approximately 1 mile along the Blue Ribbon, trout-rated Kootenai River, and an eye-popping view of the Cabernet Mountain Wilderness area. This is truly an outdoorsman's paradise. You can use the restored and remodeled barn with living quarters as a year-round home, vacation cabin, fishing retreat, horse ranch, or cattle ranch. Contact Doug DeShazer today for additional pictures, information, and an opportunity to view this very special piece of Montana. And with interest rates starting to rise, now is the time to pull the trigger on a home or property. Even if you're not able to relocate to Montana, worry not, sifters. Doug DeShazer has facilitated home and land sales in California, Texas, Oregon, Washington, and many other states. He can find you the perfect real estate agent for the job, no matter where you live in the U.S. Feel free to contact Doug with any questions regarding real estate at DeShazerMT@gmail.com or give him a call at 406-291-1643. That's 406-291-1643. Thanks once again to DeShazer Ryan Realty for sponsoring GameFace. We're going to do some Q&A.
So the main series is considered to be 1 through 4, Origins, Homecoming, Shattered Memories, and Downpour. So this would be Silent Hill 9.
Really? If they decided to go the numerical?
Which they're not. I'm sure it'll be Silent Hill : something.
Yeah, some subtitle.
Silent Hill something coming in 2024.
something. We're going to do some Q&A here. Get your questions into the chat at Sifted Games. That way we can pluck them out from all the regular conversation. We are supported 100% by our generous patrons at patreon.com/sifted. If you like the show, if you're listening to it on any of the podcast services, or you're watching it or listening to it on YouTube, and you want to help make sure the show keeps going so we can get to 400, make sure you head to patreon.com/sifted and drop us a pledge. $4 a month or more gets you all our content early, and we'd really appreciate it if you could do that. And if you can't afford to do that, check out the description if you're watching on YouTube. You can help us out with Twitch Prime. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you can give us a free $2.50 a month for just a couple clicks once you get it all set up. And again, the instructions for that are down in the description. All right, let's get to chat. See what they're saying, what they're asking. Zet Saber says, I'd rather have a remake of Clock Tower than Silent Hill. How do you feel about that, Matt?
I could get behind that.
Yeah. JM Rain, thank you for all the subs that you're giving out to people in our community and in our chat. Vincent says, remember, Konami was supposed to show up at E3 with a bunch of stuff, but pulled out at the last minute. Apparently, the Silent Hill Universe stuff was supposed to be the main reveal there. Okay. Last year, he's pointing out. From Sneaky Schalachsnake, have you seen the greed from Sony making people pay more to upgrade their PlayStation Plus if they got it on a deal and you have to buy your full sub duration? No, I haven't seen that. No, I thought they were making it really easy. In fact, they had to...
Wouldn't surprise me, but...
I thought they had to protect themselves because they had made it too easy, and they had to stop selling, like, the 1-year subscriptions.
They stopped letting you pile the old subscriptions on, but you could... once it changes, you're going to be able to put them in. I guess they just didn't want to change it over.
Okay. I hadn't heard that, by the way. And if that is the case, that is scummy. Mm-hmm. It definitely is. It's also stupid because you're launching this brand new service. You don't want to get off on the wrong foot. So this whole thing, in my opinion, for PlayStation feels like it was just slapped together.
Yeah.
It feels like they came up with an idea in a meeting like 6 months ago.
I think I've said before, I think they're just putting the framework in place in case they need it later.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay.
They're not even trying that hard to get people excited about it. It's not even
it doesn't seem like...
I think they're just putting the tech in place.
I'll be interested to see if we see any like commercials or marketing for it, but we'll see. Squishy Muffin, what are your guys' general thoughts and memories of Sleeping Dogs? Heard it's a bit of a hidden gem, and it's only $3 on Steam at the moment. Go buy it.
Yeah, it's great.
Go spend your $3.
That's the best $3 you'll spend all month.
Definitely in this month.
Go get yourself a pork bun.
Yeah, you're right. It is a hidden gem. It is underappreciated. It is worth every penny of $3 and then
some.
A
man who never eats a pork bun is never a true man. Get in there.
I think you will be pleasantly surprised by it, even despite how old it is.
It's great.
For $3, it's a no-brainer. Go buy it. And again, thank you, JM Rain, for the subs. Awesome, dude. Here's a long one from Erebus Jones. Do you think Sony will change the way they charge for new PlayStation Plus, given the news today that if you want to... this is the same thing, I guess. If you want to upgrade your sub from Essential to Extra, you have to pay the upgrade for the whole period of your sub. So if you've stacked multiple years, you have to upgrade all of it.
So that's why they stopped you from being able to do that.
And also,
all of a sudden you'd owe them $300.
Right. And also, if you got your sub on discount, they are charging the discount on top.
Wow.
This is an oversight, surely.
Maybe.
I don't know about an oversight.
I don't know.
It might not be.
That's some Nintendo shit right there.
That is some Nintendo stuff. That's pretty shady. I don't think it's on purpose. I think they slapped all this stuff together.
Yeah, it's hard to tell what's greed and what's just sloppy.
Right. I think this just like all this stuff is like coming together, and they're like, oh crap, like we didn't realize this domino was gonna fall.
Yeah, it sounds like it wouldn't surprise me at all that like nobody really sat in a room and thought about all the possible variables here.
It doesn't seem like it. That's for damn sure. It just feels like they're like, we gotta compete. How can we compete? And as they started like actually handling the logistics of it, they're like, oh, wait a minute, like this isn't gonna work, so how are we gonna address this? And then they didn't realize the kids are smart AF, and the kids are like, oh my gosh, I can stack this stuff, and they start stacking it, and Sony's like, well, we can't like take that away because we'll look bad, but how can we make sure we don't lose our butts on this? Oh, well, we can do this other thing that Erebus Jones just stumbled across. I really think that's it. I think it tried to start out from a good place, and it just didn't have the whole plan nailed down. Things started tumbling and falling, and they're like, oh, crap, now we're in a really bad position, and now they're scrambling trying to fix it. So I think that's what happened. Maybe I'm giving Sony more of the benefit of the doubt than I should, but it doesn't feel like this was all a plan. Because it's just, it feels so haphazard. Like,
Sneaky says you have to pay the difference, and if you've got 10 years stacked up, you have to pay $600 to switch to a new tier. You can't do month to month.
See, my feeling is that PlayStation's going to realize this, and it's going to change that and fix
Probably,
it.
yeah.
I don't think it's going to stay that way.
You know, either it's, they didn't realize that was a thing that was going to happen, or they were like, let's see if we can get away with it.
Yeah.
But, well, you know, who knows?
You can't get away with stuff in this industry.
No, that doesn't happen anymore.
That is the dumbest strategy you can... Our audience...
Yeah, but you've been in those meetings. You've been in meetings where people are like, "How have you never left this room before that you think that is a viable thing that could happen?" Like,
that's true.
Who knows?
Yeah, some people are out of touch and clueless. Yakov 226. Hi guys. Any dreams and wishes for the not E3? I mean, my general wish is that we won't call it the not E3 when it's all said and done. I really hope that at this point, I really hope that everyone gets on board with Jeff Keighley. Like, I hope that his summer, and I always forget this, it's Summer Game Fest, which I don't know why he named it Summer Game Fest instead of Summer Games Fest.
Well, because it's a game fest, and it's in the summer.
I guess. Anyway, I hope that
I think you're supposed to think of Game Fest as its own noun.
Right.
And summer is a modifier. But to me, I keep thinking of it as Summer Games Festival.
Fest, yeah.
Like a festival of... Also, you know what else also might be a problem is I bet the Olympics would have a problem with him saying Summer Games.
You may be right, actually. That's true. That's smart. That may be... But anyway,
they will sue you for anything.
They will.
They'll probably sue us for me saying that.
They may. But anyway, to your point, I hope that everyone gets behind Jeff, and Jeff has like an amazing blowout that lasts like 3 days. It already seems like he's trying to concentrate it into that week instead of making it this long, drawn out all summer.
I think there will
thing.
Still be stragglers or doing their own thing across like June and July, but.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll get like a late Nintendo Direct in July about Xenoblade and like things like that. But like, I think people did sort of learn from last year that spreading it out is sort of, it's hard to keep people's attention that long.
Their interest, yeah. So, and some of the announcements that Jeff has already made, it does sound like he's concentrating it into a 3-day period, which means we could have kind of a little pseudo E3 this year. So, my dream is that is in fact what happens.
Little Wii 3.
Yeah, there we go. I like that. Let's see what else.
Mini 3.
Yeah, Mini 3. That's a good one. Cinetite, can Alan Wake 2 from Remedy, self-described as a Remedy take on horror, fulfill the Silent Hill niche of a game better than the Silent Hill leaked project itself?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Alan Wake 2 was better than all of those Silent Hill projects combined in the end, but Remedy does good stuff. But, I mean, I don't know. Alan Wake isn't really the same thing to me.
It's only vague. It's sci-fi more than horror to me.
Yeah, I mean, they said they're leaning more into the horror on this one, and I'm sure there'll be some of that, but, like, it's a different thing. Like, Alan Wake is very inspired by Stephen King, and kind of has that terror element to it. You know, I think they're leaning into that on this one, whereas Silent Hill is grime and offal and ichor and blood. It's just, it's like... You know, like
you can smell it.
Yeah, Silent Hill's a slaughterhouse. Like, Silent Hill is not in the way that Texas Chainsaw Massacre was, but like Silent Hill is down in the muck.
Yeah,
and like Alan Wake isn't so much. Alan Wake is a little more psychological to me
and more supernatural.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely it can be hard to tell in Silent Hill if there is anything supernatural happening or if everyone's just crazy,
delusional and crazy. Yeah,
which I guess is sort of maybe that's why you pick Bloober Team because of the medium.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that Silent Hill will have the weird duality, like playing both things at once?
I mean, even when we played that game, we both were like, "Yeah, that would work." I mean, the dual world thing kind of fits.
Right,
at the very least, they've got experience in making that.
That would drastically change the game, and that might piss some people off. But
yeah, I mean, I do think the idea of freely moving between the regular and Dark World and Silent Hill maybe misses the point of Silent Hill. But at the very least, you know that they can do two versions of the thing. You know?
Yep, absolutely. Let's see what else we got. Mitchell is alive. What was the most recent game that was well received, but you just couldn't get into it? Have you ever gave a game a second chance and had a change of opinion? I've been doing this for the last couple weeks, going back and playing a lot of the big games from the early part of the year because there's just nothing to play, and I'd rather play a really good game and finish off a really good game than suffer through something that's not that great.
Yeah, I mean, most multiplayer stuff is like that to me. Like, I just don't get into things like that. I guess Valheim was sort of like that.
That was hard for me to get into as well.
I played a little bit of it, and I'm just like, it just didn't hook me.
It never clicked for me either.
A lot of that stuff was like art. A lot of the online stuff does that for me.
A lot of indie stuff for me personally that people get really excited about. Like I go and play it, and I'm like, meh.
Rogue Legacy 2. Like I didn't, I've never gone back to that again.
Yeah.
Like I know people love that game. But I just doesn't. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Hades is very unique to me in that it made and Returnal are unique to me in that it made roguelikes interesting and fun to me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
That is usually not a genre that really holds my attention for more than a day.
I mean, the most obvious for me is Elden Ring. I mean, I really gave that game a chance. And I obviously played it more than any other From Software game that has ever been released, and I still didn't really enjoy it even at the end of it all. So that's probably the most obvious one for me.
Yeah, in terms of second chances, I guess that's probably Dark Souls. After I finally figured out how it worked in Dark Souls 2 and went back to Demon Souls and Dark Souls, I'm like, oh, I get this now.
Yeah.
So that was probably the biggest change.
I've given lots of games a second chance, but I can't remember any where I went back later and my opinion changed.
And like you can go back way back. I mean, Dragon Age Origins, I think is one of the worst things I've ever played, and people love that game. Mm-hmm. And I played that game twice, and I got all the achievements in preparation for Dragon Age Inquisition. I went through 1 and 2 and like just completed them 100%, just like to say I did it more or less, because I'd already done it for Mass Effect, and I was like, well, I should do it for this too. And I don't know why I decided that. I just think I just had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And it was 2013. I just G4 just fired us all, and I was looking for another. I'm like, I have nothing else to do. I'm just going to play Dragon Age all day.
Yeah.
It fits the misery. But yeah, and I played those games endlessly, really, and I never understood why anybody likes them. I think they're terrible. I think Inquisition I like. Okay.
Here's an interesting factoid. Dragon Age Inquisition, the first ever game page on Sifted.
That's right, yeah.
For whatever reason, it was the first game page that Brent built, and we used that as the model to figure out what the game page was going to be.
It was just the big thing at the time, I think.
I guess it was.
I think it was just the most recent big release.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that would have been like early 2013, mid 2013.
Yeah, so I looked at that game page for like months, trying to figure out what our game pages would ultimately be and look like.
It's also a cool cover.
It is, yeah. Another one from Mitchell is Alive. You're asking great questions. How often should you assume positive intent from game companies? Are there any companies that are around right now that have a longer leash than others? So basically, it's saying like, when should you give game publishers the benefit of the doubt, and which ones do you tend to give the benefit of the doubt to?
I almost never give the benefit of the doubt to publishers.
Yeah,
but I will give the benefit of the doubt to a dev team.
Yeah.
That's the distinction of it. Like I don't trust EA any further than I could throw the Redwood Shores building. Yeah. But I do more or less trust Respawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's based on history. Like, of the big three, probably the one I trust the most is probably Nintendo. Oddly enough, the one I trust the least.
Except when it comes to online stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, just trust that, like, they are looking out for the happiness of their customers the most. Because you don't see shady stuff creeping into Nintendo's games, like the microtransaction stuff or the games as a service stuff. Part of it might be that it just can't do it.
outside of the mobile stuff.
Yeah. But for the most part, like, for whatever reason, I think I trust them the most. And oddly enough, I think I trust the least Xbox. It just feels like it's been like a Jekyll and Hyde thing with Xbox through the years. Like, I don't feel like it's ever kind of found its thing and stuck with it. Whereas PlayStation, it's done its fair share of shady stuff, no doubt. But one thing I do trust about PlayStation is when its first party stuff comes out, it's going to be really polished. Yeah. Like Xbox, I just have the least amount of trust in of the big three.
I don't really draw much of a distinction between the three of them in that regard. It's as far as high level company work. I believe the teams that make these games are always trying to make good games.
Yeah.
I've never met a game developer that has said like, that one game I just phoned that in.
Yeah.
Then it happens, I'm sure, if you're playing like you're talking about making like horrible license games. But even people that worked on horrible license games, they tend to take some pride in their work on it. There's not a lot of sandbagging in game dev. It's too hard. The work's too hard to not put something into it. Even the worst like kiddie game has someone in there who's got some passion to like how SpongeBob animates or something.
Yeah.
It's the publishers and the executive wing and the network notes, for lack of a better equivalent, that I don't trust.
Okay.
Generally, I think game development teams are trying to do something good.
Well, sometimes it's not in the control of the development team.
It's not up to them most of the time. That's the problem.
That's why the publishers kind of matter in that case.
Or it matters like who's running that dev company. Like I'm sure Sony's tried to pull some shady shit on Insomniac now and then, but I don't think you're getting that past Ted Price.
Probably not.
So that helps.
Leadership helps.
Although
what happened with the whole pro-choice thing, where they basically told Insomniac to shut up.
Yeah, and then Insomniac said no.
Well, it kind of acquiesced.
But they kind of ran around, and then Bungie's just like, they can't tell us what to do. We're just going to say it. And then Sony backed off of it.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, that's what Ted Price and Insomniac did there is more than 99% of the rest of the industry would do.
Oh, yeah, I'm not begrudging them at all. I'm just showing you the power of the mothership.
That takes some balls and knowing what
what you
how
can get away
essential
with.
You are.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, you can get mad about this, but then you don't get our Spider-Man game. Like, if you want to, like, fire us all or, like, like that's you only kill the golden goose there.
Yeah.
So they
played their hand right.
Yeah, that was truth to power.
And I mean, at the end of the day, we all know where Insomniac stands.
Yeah.
And that's really what's most important.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're going to feel okay buying Spider-Man 2 after all that.
Lestevid, thank you, man, for the Tier 1 subs that you're giving out to people in our chat. That's awesome. We'll take one more. Here it is from Ammo Clip 20. Do you think Microsoft will have a lot of first-party games to finally show off during their non-E3 show, or will it just be mostly Starfield and third-party stuff?
I don't think it's going to be any Starfield at all.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't think they're going to show the first gameplay at Starfield?
They might not.
I think they will.
I think that game
I think they either open or close their show with it.
I think that game is further out than we think.
Like, you don't think it's coming Q1 of next year?
I think it may not be next year.
What? Oh, my God. If that were the case, that would be insane. I personally think that it's going to show a ton of first-party stuff. Because
I think we might see something from Fable, finally.
Fable, I think we'll see the first gameplay of Avowed. I think we'll see the more gameplay of Hellblade. I think we'll see
definitely some Hellblade.
First gameplay of Starfield. I think we'll see probably the first gameplay of Redfall. I think we'll see the first real gameplay of Forza Motorsport. I think we'll see. That might be it. That's pretty damn good, though.
I think you're being very optimistic.
Really?
Yeah. I think we will.
All those games have been in development for a long time.
I think we will get 3 things. I think we will get maybe a little taste of Starfield, maybe a little taste of Fable, and a lot of Forza Motorsport, and then a bunch of other little things.
See, I think to me, Fable is the least likely of any of the things I just listed.
I think Playground Games has been working on it long enough.
We'll see. I think it's going to be good, though. I think your question is the thing going to be good? I think it's going to be good. I don't think anyone's going to walk away and be disappointed. That would be a huge mistake.
I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of interest.
That would be a huge mistake. After this year?
I don't think it's a mistake. I think it's just all they got. I don't think they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah. But what of the things that I listed would be a stretch to be able to show gameplay of?
I think it's all further behind than we think.
Wow. Is this insider information that you've got?
Not that I know of. Maybe Hellblade. I think Hellblade's probably in there.
It has to be.
I don't think Hellblade's this year.
I don't either. I think they would have already said that
probably.
When they were getting heat when they delayed Redfall in Starfield.
I think we're gonna get some Hellblade. I think we're gonna get some Forza. I think if we're lucky, there'll be some Starfield. But I think a lot of it's going to be focusing on existing things. I think they're gonna do a big thing on that stupid Gears of War collection. I think we're gonna have to sit through a whole thing about how they're gonna revamp Halo Infinite, that kind of stuff. A lot of Xbox indie stuff, like Game Pass stuff. I think it's gonna feel like they're stalling for time again. So I think nothing's ready.
Can't do that. What a disaster.
I don't think they have much of a Everybody's doing it. I mean, that's what this year's whole release schedule is. Everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
Like nothing's ready.
It's been awful. It's really been awful. It started with such promise, and it's just nosedived since then. It's really crazy. Okay. That's it for GameFace episode 301. Thanks to everyone who hung out on the stream. We're here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Come hell or high water, we are here because this was a hell or high water episode, and we were here. There was hell and high water this week, and we still delivered an episode to you guys. So we're here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. If you want to support us, head to patreon.com/Sifted. You can pledge whatever you want, but if you want all our content early, you just have to pledge $4 a month. And then you can help us for free with Twitch Prime. And if you're watching on YouTube, the instructions for that are down below. So, I don't know if next week's episode is going to be...
Vincent's right. There's going to be a lot of grounded.
That's
right.
We'll see about that. I surely hope not. Bloodwake 2 from Evil Oni 5.
Finally, Nightcaster 3. Yep. We've waited long enough.
Yep. So anyway, there you go. That's GameFace episode 301. We'll see you next Tuesday. GameFace is up and out.